Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of question and answering session on the LIFE program Call for Proposal 2021. My name is Laura Giappichelli. I work in the LIFE program in the sector of climate action, and I will guide you through the agenda today. Well, first of all, I hope you enjoyed the session yesterday. Today is also a live event. We will start first with climate action. I will moderate this session and I will also reply to some of the questions. After this session that will last about 45 minutes, we will have a short break, a coffee break. You will have the chance also to watch some video testimonials of LIFE projects. The second part of the day will be dedicated to operating grants, moderated by my colleague, Joël Noirfalis. Again, another coffee break to relax and also to enjoy live video testimonials. And we will continue the morning with the live clean energy transition session, moderated by my colleagues Annette Jan and my colleague Maria Laguna. So I just want also to remind you how we can receive your questions. You see the slide, you can join at slido.com. Here is the hashtag LIFE21 and the QR code. Let's get started. I would like to introduce you the team that is with us, the climate team. We have Claudia Guerrini, Darek Urbaniak, Hanna Mandelikova, Diana Wancea, and we have also Chris Wojcik. I don't see it on the screen now, but he will join in a minute. He's a newcomer, he just joined our team. So let's get started. We know we have received a lot of questions. Thanks a lot. They are very interesting ones. As you know, I will, as it was done yesterday, I will read the questions, the top ranked, so the ones who receive the most number of likes. And we will try to cover as many questions as we can. Here I see the first question is, I will read it. It's for a climate mitigation and adaptation call. Can there be more than one lead beneficiary per work package? So could a work package have two leaders? This question, I think there was already maybe a reply yesterday, but I can reply to this immediately by saying that no. There can be only one lead beneficiary per work package. This is what the template allows. However, of course, in the work package, in the description, you can always clarify the different roles of the partners that are involved in the specific action you want to describe. So let me go to the second question. Climate governance, I think. Producing measurable results for this kind of projects seems difficult. Is there any example from past projects showing how to get measurable impact? Indeed, this is it is a very interesting question for the climate governance part of the call of the subprogram climate action. I can ask this question to Claudia. Claudia, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, it's a question that we are asked several times because for this kind of projects, demonstrating direct impacts is quite difficult, mainly with measurable data. And usually visible results are in the medium term after the end of the project. Nevertheless, there are some projects who are able to produce measurable results also during the life of the project. I can mention one specific project just ended. Is a governance and information project in Austria, in Innsbruck, is named Doppel Plus. And this is related to energy efficiency in buildings dealing with specific target groups, such as migrants, single households, elderly, women with very low pensions, and long-term unemployed people. What they did is that they managed to get a real win-win solution, because they managed to reduce energy consumption and the production of CO2 emissions. And at the same time, they got an improvement, of the life of these people by reducing their energy bill. How they managed to do it? They set up individual consultation of the households through the so-called energy climate coaches, and they visited the households during the project course, and they explained the relevant energy saving modes. And they also gave to these people a starter kit to, let's say, enhance motivation. At the end, because the project just ended this in spring this year, they got measurable results, because it was possible to test the reduction of consumption, of course. That was also a reduction in the energy bill, because as an average, each single household was able to save around, if I'm not mistaken, 200 euros per year in terms of saving money. In terms of reduction, I cannot recall the exact figure, but it was around 1,500 megawatts per year. So in this case, it was possible. So it depends very much on the kind of action, but it is possible. And you can check this project in our project database by keywords. The acronym is DAPL+. And there are also other interesting projects in the database. If we have time, I can mention others later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Claudia, for the very clear reply and the example. I think it's actually very useful for all the participants to have a look to the LIFE database with all the projects that we have funded so far. But let's go to the second question.
Laura, if I may compliment
sure.
Claudia on this question, because it's true that it's a question that comes very often, and generally what we see as impact in governance and information projects are increased level of awareness, increased level of knowledge, changed consumption patterns, enhanced coordination between different institutions and processes and plans, mainstreaming of climate objectives into the different policies, better coordination and enforcement. And how can you demonstrate those impacts? Well, you can do it via surveys. You can look at the consumption patterns and see whether certain products or services are more used than before. You can present whether new legislation or new strategies or plans have been adopted and implemented. Then the climate and environmental impacts are generally a bit indirect for governance projects, and they are usually visible in the mid-term after the end of the project. So I think it's still feasible that for this type of project you can show impact. Thanks.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you very much for complementing the answer. I will then move to the second question. So we have, under the climate mitigation priority on energy intensive industries, are energy intensive industries defined somewhere? Is there a limited list of energy intensive industries? For this question, Darek, would you be able to reply to this question?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Laura, very much. And welcome everyone. Obviously, this question relates to the energy intensive industries as a priority under climate change mitigation. And we received a number of these questions actually related to this point, which are somehow leading to asking us to describe in a more specific way what are or whether there is a priority list. So the short question is not, we don't have the priority list. However, the energy intensive industries remain at the core of the mitigation strategy, as these industries are one of the top emitters, and the Commission understands that the potential to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from this particular sector is greatest. What we try to do is, as I mentioned, we try not to limit the list, as we would like to invite as many possible innovative ideas as possible. However, in general, majority of proposals that we received are focusing on steel, aluminum, glass, ceramic, cement, and chemical industries. Again, these are the ones that have the highest potential, and the innovation is growing very fast, and there is a high support also from other EU programs. Now, the other point is that although this sounds like the focus is on larger industries, however, we do not try to limit the applications to come from larger sectors or larger industrial actors. Quite contrary, the focus here is to invite also the small and medium-sized enterprises, which have the most transformative potential. So in short, we don't have the list. The application here potential is open to all applicants, from large industries, from smaller industries. And if any of the applicants would like to familiarize themselves or further investigate, I suppose there is a list on the Commission site, which provide detailed information on those specific industries. Thank you. So I think I answered the question now. So back to you, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, Darek. Thank you very much. Let's move on and we go to the next question. Are preparatory actions such as requesting permits eligible in climate adaptation projects? I think partly this question was already asked yesterday on preparatory actions, but it's important to perhaps clarify. I would like to invite Chris to reply to this question. Chris, would you like to reply?
Sure, thank you, Laura. First of all, welcome to everyone, and great to be here. And I hope that you and your family are all safe. So keep tight, please. The answer is very concrete. So the question is very concrete. So the answer should be concrete as well. So in principle, yes, but only if necessary. And please keep in mind that it is not recommended to have large number, I would say, of such permits in your mind, in your planned actions, because if yes, maybe your projects will be seen as not major enough. So we do not recommend a large activity in that field, because it can also affect your scoring point and evaluation. So in principle, yes, but do not extend that to the large scale. I think that would be the answer. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much, Chris. Is there anyone who wants to complement from the team?
Yes, Laura, if I may.
Thank you. Yes, sure.
Just shortly to add what Chris was mentioning. Obviously, this issue of permits comes up quite often in a number of proposals. We understand that those permits are needed in many cases. However, from practical point of view, quite often the applicants would indicate that they will request permits or provide those permits sometimes in the second or third year of the project. The project is already well underway. And sometimes we see that it would be preferential, if possible, that those permits are obtained, or at least an action is taken at the outset of the project. And I'm mentioning this because quite often after 1 or 2 years of project implementation, there are situations where the applicant is not able to obtain a specific project, and that puts the whole project in jeopardy. So our advice would be that if you prepare, or when you prepare your application, to look very closely at this issue, and if you can, indicate that you obtain those permits as soon as possible in the process. That will help us to evaluate your proposal from the point of view that Chris mentioned, and also help you later during the implementation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Darek. Thank you again for complimenting the reply. So let's go to the next one. Okay, I see going up. I think the next one is climate change mitigation, because I see emission okay, no, sorry, I see that one. The greenhouse emission reduction in energy-intensive industries should not be achieved solely through fuel switching. Is the electrification of energy-intensive industries processes fuel switching? Darek or Chris, would you like to take this question?
I can take this one, of course. Thank you. This is an excellent question, and of course, we have not predefined this specific way or technology of fuel switching. However, with the electrification processes now moving towards a greener energy, I would imagine that if a given industrial process could indicate that in absence of other possible fuels, they would use an electricity from green sources, I would think we could consider this as to be qualified as fuel switching in a green way that would be supported by LIFE program. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Darek. I go to the next one. So the next one is, as stated in the call, projects should start at TRL 4.5 and end at TRL 8.9. We are then talking about very long project. Is this really the objective? Again, I would ask this question, yes, to the mitigation expert, Darek, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's a really pleasure to answer these questions, because we believe the more questions we answer in the best possible way, then it will help you to prepare better proposals. So this is not really an objective. So I would say this question is not put in the right way. Actually, this is one of the criteria, and it's quite strong because the expectation from our side is that the projects that are submitted are indeed at the level of TRL level 4.5, and that by the end of the project, they reach level 8.9. So this is not an objective, but I would rather say that this is a quite strong expectation from our side. And when the independent experts, when they evaluate the proposals, they do look into this point. So I think I answered this question now. Back to you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Darek, again, for answering the question. I would like to, because we are going a lot on mitigation, if we can have also some questions maybe on adaptation, just to balance a bit the question and answers. Are there questions on adaptation in the next slide, for example? Because here I see personal cost, mitigation, TRL mitigation again.
Let me look for it.
If there is any
Laura,
question on adaptation, but in the meantime, I'll take another question. So let's go to the one on the CVs, for example. The user guide mentions to present if required in the call and climate change. Call doesn't mention it, neither the participant information form. We add it anyway. So basically, do they need to add CVs? Perhaps Chris, would you like to reply to this one?
Sure. This is very good question as well. So thanks for that. Yeah, the answer is very easy. Yes, you should provide it as well. It's always better, I would say, to provide more than less, and then I think it would give you also the position that you will not be in stress to provide additional documents, and it's not an obstacle. I think it's quite easy to do. So the answer is yes, definitely. Please provide them.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the next one. So in the CLIMA call document, there is no clear requirement regarding the innovation of the project. Could you indicate topics in which innovation is required? I would go again to the CLIMA mitigation team. If Chris or Darek, would you like to come into this question?
Yes, I can take this up, of course. Again, a quite important question and very relevant for this call. I think the best answer is that the general expectation is that project submitted for under our program needs to have the innovative component. And this is also, in a sense, related to the fact of how the projects are then evaluated in the award criteria. Probably many of you noticed that the award criteria has changed from last year or from previous year to this year. And now the focus is put more, there's a higher focus on the impact on the project as well. So leading from innovation, the innovation should provide at the end that the results that the project deliver are high and they reach the anticipated either greenhouse gas reduction emissions or avoidance. And here I would guide you to read the award criteria, as I mentioned, where specifically we have the new point on the impact, and the impact weighting is 1.5, and that should give you an indication of how important the innovation element is, and then in the end that relates to the impact of the project and how that project would be evaluated.
Thanks a lot, Darek. Please stay a bit because I still see questions on mitigation. So I would move to the next one, which is in Climacol document, there is no clear requirement regarding what are the specificities of number 3, increase the generation of renewable energy compared to clean energy transition sub-program? I think it's important to reply to this one. Darek, if you can come in on this, please. Thank you.
Excuse me. I think I should have a glass of water with me in front of me. But okay, this is a very important question, actually. And I'm very happy that this question was actually put forward. And this is because the Clean Energy Transition Sub-Program joined the LIFE program starting from this year. And there will be a dedicated session, from what I understand, after hours, in which you will get more details about the Clean Energy Transition Program. But coming back to how this is defined in the climate change mitigation and adaptation, we purposely left this more open. And as you see in the guidelines, the way that the priorities were framed, indeed, we focus on energy generation and renewable energy, however, in a way that does not overlap with the priorities of the clean energy transition. And this is purposely done because of the different approaches. LIFE, or our current program in the form that we existed and exist right now, we have the bottom-up approach. Therefore, we invite all of the proposals that will address the specific priorities of the larger areas. Whether, and what you will hear in the Clean Energy Transition Program, the priorities or the topics are more predefined. And then the other main difference between the Clean Energy Program and our program, or it's still our program, but the sub-program, is that within this priority, and in general, LIFE does not support research. And you should be familiar with this when you read the guidelines. Again, we're at the level of demonstration, we're at the level of prototype. The TRL level that I mentioned before is 4 and 5. So we don't support the research unless it's specific and well justified for the purpose of delivering demonstration. And this is the key difference between what the mitigation adaptation program does and the clean energy that came from Horizon 2020, where research is actually supported. So I hope this answered the question, and I'm happy to, we know this is a new element, so please contact us directly and we can provide more detailed answers, clarification of this if necessary. Thank you, Laura, back to you.
Thank you very much, Darek. I'll move also to other colleagues now, so you can have also your glass of water. Thanks a lot. I see now a new question. Does LIFE program support development of tools, decision support services or studies to increase climate resilience? Thanks a lot for this question. I would like to ask this question to Diana. Diana,
Yes.
could you please come in? Thank you.
Yes, actually it does. But I think we need to have a very important mention, because projects that develop tools or studies need to include concrete actions to make sure that these tools are being implemented or used by the end users, or that the studies are being used in policy making or in monitoring of policy making during the project duration. So not only developing a tool or a study, it has to be used during the project. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Diana. I'll move to the next one on SAP Klima. Please confirm that personnel costs are only presented as a total amount per beneficiary on the online budget. No breakdown of amount per work program, etc. Yes, I can confirm. We have in the online budget presents only the total amount, not the breakdown. The breakdown will be only in part B, sorry, of the template. So let's move to the next question. I think this one we have, didn't we reply already? Renewable energy not covered by SET. We can take it, climate change mitigation. Sorry, I see now CVs, this one we have already replied, right? Personnel costs, we have just replied. Okay, CCM, are conditions elaborated on page 17 of the call for bullet points on how projects should contribute to objective cumulative? Okay, I can ask this question to Chris, for example. Chris, would you like to come in?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Laura. This is a great question. It rises quite often, actually. So the answer is no, it's not cumulative. The catalog of those objectives does not have that character. It's about to have, I would say, inclusive approach, to have different types of project, different approaches to contribute to the objective of the call. So therefore, I would say it's not necessary to tick all of the boxes, but we would recommend you to tick as many as possible. Of course, it will raise your scoring on the evaluation stage. So the answer, no cumulative, but please try to reach them as much as possible. Thank you. Go back to you, Laura.
Thank you, Chris, for the very clear answer. Okay, we go to another area of intervention of life. We would like to submit a proposal focused on forest management. Should we submit under climate adaptation or climate mitigation? We get also this question quite often. I would like to come in to ask in now Hannah, our forest management expert.
Thank you very much, Laura. I'm very happy that we have also a question on green side of the mitigation. So it's not clear what kind of project we are talking here about. I agree that the adaptation projects and mitigation projects in forestry have a lot of synergies, and practically same action has big impact in carbon sequestration or decrease of emission and in increasing resilience. So I would invite you to look what is the main focus of your actions, what kind of impact you are focusing on. In mitigation, we are really looking if the project increases the carbon sequestration of the forest, if they decrease the emissions, if the impacts are verified at the end of the project and are demonstrated. Meanwhile, the adaptation projects are looking in the increased resilience. And we look at the indicators such as, for example, the area of the forest, which is more resilient at the end of the project and after the end of the project. So I hope it helps. But if you have further or more detailed questions, do not hesitate to contact us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hannah, for the clear explanation. I move to the next one. On the top is climate change adaptation. If the project focuses fully one of the area of intervention, but no one of the bullet points, may it equally be considered aligned with the priorities. Thank you very much. I think it's really good if we could clarify this point. I would give the floor to Diana for this question.
Yes, thank you, Laura. I think this is a very good point actually for all the strands, not only CCA. So if I get the question right, and I think we need to get the terminology right, I think the question refers if the project fully complies with the scope, and the scope is signaled by the numbers. But not complying with the bullet points, which are the areas of intervention, it is okay. It's still aligned with the priorities. Actually, the areas of intervention, as you called it, the bullet points, they are just example to illustrate the scopes. They are possible areas of intervention. So any other proposals are equally good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Diana, for the reply to this question. I go to the next one. For standard action projects, CLIMA, what makes sense on what regards geographical balance on the consortium? I can take this question. What makes sense? It makes sense what actually is important for your project. So what it will contribute to your project. As you know, for SAP, so standard action projects, CLIMA, we don't need the minimum of 3 eligible countries. So a consortium, it's not compulsory, but in case you have a consortium from different countries, you will get additional point. Of course, if we see the rationale behind, if this contributes to the implementation of the project to increase the impact of the project. So what makes sense really depends on the nature of your project and on the extent to which the actions you will put in place in different countries will contribute to the impact of this project. So I would like then to move to another question. So let me see, what do we have? We can go to maybe the next one. No, I see now, yeah, for CLIMA demonstration project, is the investment in hydrogen refueling station and heavy duty hydrogen truck eligible as a full cost? This is actually a question related to finance. We had already the session yesterday. I think we need to refer to what we had discussed yesterday. We can cover actual costs, but it depends, of course, on the conditions that have been identified in the call for proposal for the financial part. So to be honest, I would leave this question for the financial colleagues. In case you have doubts, you can also check the recording that was done yesterday on the financial part. So let's move to the next question. The new call for 2021 has different award criteria than previous years. What is the key difference and expectations for the climate projects? Thank you very much. This is also a very good question. Indeed, we have moved to different criteria, although the essence of the criteria is still the same. The checks we will do are in the main and core nature are still the same. But I will ask the question to my colleagues. Who would like to come in for this question?
Yeah, Laura, I can
Darek, thank you.
That. Thank you. Maybe just before answering this question, just a very quick reference to the previous one, the hydrogen, because indeed the way this was posed, it's a financial question, but this is a new area which was introduced, and it's rightly that there are questions coming about that. So hydrogen and e-mobility, it's a completely new element on this call. So we expect more questions like that, but nevertheless, this is one of the new and upcoming priorities. So we'll definitely look into it. As regards the award criteria, I think to a certain extent, we mentioned that before. In a nutshell, in the previous years, we have 5 award criteria focusing on technical coherence, quality, financial coherence, EU added value, and then the additional bonuses. Starting from this year, we have 4 key award criteria: relevance, impact, quality, resources. Again, I already mentioned the impact has a weight of 1.5, and there are 4 bonuses, which in a sense are in line with what we have before. It's slightly in a rephrased way, but the focus this year is definitely on more on the impact of the projects than before, as we expect more concrete, measurable results. I think this answered the question at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darek. I see that we have also other questions, new questions. So, is it possible to build on an existing project? How does the new project need to be? Any specific criteria? Thank you very much. This is also a very interesting question. Indeed, we have projects coming in that are linked or can build on existing projects. I can maybe ask Claudia to come in on this.
Yes, Laura, thank you very much. It's not very clear to me if they are referring to a second stage of the same project or completely different projects. But in both cases, it is possible. Of course, it has to be logical. There has to be a reason to build on an already existing project. It may be that there is a project that has started a process, and they already envisage to continue the idea and the process, and they can build the second project based on the results of the first one. And this is also something good, proving that the first project has been successful. But it can be built also on results of other projects, because during the application stage, maybe you will be asked to mention, if you are referring to other projects and you are referring to the results of other projects, that can be live projects, but also projects financed by other programs, such as the H2020, for instance. So it always depends on the structure and the purpose of your project, but it is a good idea if you have the possibility to use results already produced by another project. Don't know if anybody else wants to add something. Otherwise, I give back the floor to Laura.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much for the reply, the exhaustive reply. Another question, we move on, about 100,000 grants prizes to third parties. We wish to offer a small grant to each farmer who will commit his land for our tasks. Is that permissible? Thank you. Indeed, the third parties, it's grant, it's a new feature that was introduced last year, so still rather new. Diana maybe can come in on this question. Diana, would you like to reply?
Yes, thank you, Laura. And I will try to wrap up, because I have seen several questions on this topic. Indeed, it is allowed to have a financial support for a third party, which is to assist an entity that is outside the project consortium, like for example, a nonprofit organization or a local authority or a citizen group, or even farmers, as I saw in the question. So basically, you can assist them in implementing a local initiative that will contribute to the project objectives. The maximum total amount for this support is 100,000, and each party can get up to 20,000. Now, what is important? The application must clearly specify why the financial support is needed, how it will be managed, provide a list of activities for each third party that may receive the financial support, what activities they will do, also how this grant is going to be given. Please clearly specify all these issues, how the selection will be done, how the financial support will be monitored. Also, you can finance prices with these types of grants, and also for that you have to provide an idea of the eligibility of the award criteria in your application, of the payment arrangements. So I hope this is also clear for all the questions that I have seen on the third-party granting. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you very much. We can go to another question. What do we have as next one? Okay, here I see a lot of questions. I see again the what makes sense on regards on the geographical balance, but I think this we have already replied. And we have one question regarding the funding rate. This was also answered already yesterday in the financial session. Then what do we have? The new the LIFE award criteria, different from last year. We had already replied, unless other colleagues wants to add in maybe on the award criteria. Is there anyone who wants to add anything on that? Not for the moment.
No, just please read the call for every topic.
Okay, maybe this one, where do I have to include impacts in my proposal, part C or part B? I can take it actually in both parts, B and C. This is very important because, as you know, one of the key criteria of evaluation is about impact. So we would like to see the description of the impact in part B. You have a specific section for that called impact, but also through the work package, it's important that you clarify what you would like to achieve and ultimately the impact. And in part C, you will find the key performance indicators. So this is also about impact and are the indicators to address and to explain which impact you are planning to achieve. So reply is both parts. Thank you very much. A new question on forest. Maybe this we haven't touched really too much on forestry, so I would like to take it. Are pilot demonstration projects in forest firing eligible? And the reply is yes. And I actually advise you to look into the LIFE database because we had already financed a few projects in the field. So have a look on, for instance, climate adaptation. In the past, we had a few projects funded specifically in this area.
And if I may, the actions on measures against forest fires are also can be also part of the mitigation projects. And here, this is important. What Claudia said, that it's nice if you really use the results of the previous projects.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Thank you very much. I see the timing. We have actually reached our time allocated for this session. I would like just to say that the questions that we could not answer because of the time, you can send it to us to the mailbox. It's CINEA Life Inquiries. It was shared already before, but it's also on the website. And in the call, you can find the specific mail address. We will also try to update the frequently asked questions with the questions we have received during this session, so you will find the answers. And I hope you clarified many of the doubts. I really would like to thank a lot the team, Claudia, Chris, Hannah, Darek, Diana. Thank you very much for all the replies you gave. And it's not the end, of course. As I already mentioned at the beginning, we have now a short coffee break, but a nice one with testimonials from live projects. You will see the live projects, what they have done. You maybe also find some inspiration from the videos. And the next session will be on operating grants for non-profit making entities. And you will also see what are the novelties for this call. So without taking too much time, so we go to the coffee break. Thank you very much for assisting to this session, and I wish you a nice day. And I hope to see your proposals on climate action. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this question and answer session on the operating grant for nonprofit making entities under the LIFE program. My name is Joanne Noir-Felice, and I'm joined here by two of my expert colleagues on NGO operating grant, Eva Paparati and Manuel Montero. We will be having a session from 10 to 10:45, taking your questions as presented in the Slido. That will be followed by a coffee break. So we invite you to be active on Slido at Live 21, either introducing new questions or browsing through the existing questions and liking them, as we will be prioritizing the best liked questions on the Slido. So starting with the first question that we have here today, what is the difference between an output and what used to be called a short-term result, and are outputs needed for each activity? Yeah, thanks for the question. Indeed, terminology can be a bit of an issue sometimes when applying for EU funding. So I will ask my colleague Eva to respond to that question.
Yes, hello, hi everybody, and thank you for being here for this question and answer session. So I try to take the first question. So every time you describe your future activities in your applications, I would say you would not only describe the activities, but also what we call outputs, which are the immediate results. Meaning, for example, newsletters, reports, white papers, and that's you would also use by selecting deliverables for your reports, which will be evidence of the activities that you have carried out. So, I mean, you shouldn't worry too much about the definitions of results, outputs, and deliverables, but just make sure that for each activity, for each work package, you have a number of outputs and deliverables without having too many of them. So just focus on the most important ones. I hope this replied.
It does, Eva, and thanks a lot for that. We'll move on to the next question on the Slido. Is in framework partnership call, what is meant by structure and activities covering at least 3 EU member states? We have 3 offices in 3 EU countries. Are we eligible? Eva, I'll turn to you again for that one.
Yes, no problem. No problem. So this is, in fact, one of the eligibility criteria of the Framework Partnership Agreement call, which is the call covering the next 3 years of our beneficiaries, future beneficiaries. And this criterion is focused on the fact that applicants must have an EU dimension, meaning at least 3 partners or 3 members in 3 different European Union member states. Having 3 offices in 3 European Union countries, it is necessary, but it is not sufficient, meaning that not only these countries are covered by members or partners or offices of the applicants, but there must be a kind of representation, meaning that these members or partners of the applicant must have give a kind of mandate to represent them. So the applicant organization, future beneficiary, must be mandated by its partners or members to represent them at EU level. And this can be done in a structured way, for instance, through an executive board or through an administrative forum that would ensure that the views of the members are actually reflected in the demands and the claims and the positions, say, of the NGO or the organization that is the beneficiary at the EU level in the European towards the European Union institutions. And that's because we want to ensure that the call is targeting the real grassroots organizations that represent civil society. Not just think tanks. So I hope this is satisfactory, but please feel free to complement if you want, Joël or Manuel.
I think it was a very complete answer, Eva. I would just add to that, as we do realize that the eligibility criteria can be a bit daunting. Feel free, when you have a doubt, to send us an email to our mailbox. We are not in a position to give you a formal answer prior to the submission and evaluation of a proposal, but we will do our utmost to give you an answer in relation to your eligibility. I'll move on to the next one. Is it possible for an NGO to apply for both the LIFE NGO operating grant and the LIFE action grants? So as you know, we're publicizing many calls simultaneously, 2 of which are targeting LIFE NGO operating grant, namely the Framework Partnership Agreement and the Specific Grant Agreement, and several others under the sub-programs of the LIFE program that are aimed at financing LIFE action grants. But I'll give the floor to my colleague Manuel, who will respond to the question raised.
Thank you so much, Joël. Good morning to everyone. Yes, you can apply to both of the action grant and operating grant, but you must make absolutely sure that there are not overlaps between the 2 proposals in order to avoid double funding. So that is the main principal rule in this, just to avoid double funding for the same activity.
Thanks a lot, Manuel. Moving swiftly along, how shall we structure the proposal? By theme or by type of activity? This is a bit in the same gist as the previous question on deliverable outputs. Eva, can you take this one, please?
Yes, of course, I can take this one. This is really up to the applicant to decide how to structure the proposal. In fact, I must say, generally, applicants have work packages by a thematic area, which correspond to the policies that they address. But it's also possible to structure the proposal by type of activity. So each work package would be a type of activity. And this is also possible. It's really up to the applicant as they think best.
So quite a lot of room for maneuver for the applicant in that respect. The next question concerns the legal entity appointed representative. So the LEAR procedure, which is the one by which we validate a participant, and the question asked is, should the LEAR procedure be done before submitting the proposal or after, during the granting process? Manuel, could you take this question, please?
Yes. What I can say here is that the PIC is generated by the participant portal registration during the application, but the full LEAR, the legal entity appointed representative, is done during the grant preparation.
Yeah, that's indeed correct. I mean, it's a two-step process whereby during the application you would generate a PIC, which is automatically provided to you through the application, through the registration in the participant portal, but the actual legal entity appointed representative is something that comes out at a later stage. Thank you for that, Manuel. The next question that has been liked by some of you: can members be funded? What about subcontracting for members?
Yes, I can take this one, Joël, if you want.
Yes, thank you, Eva.
Yes. So it's important to note that operating grants by definition are mono-beneficiary grants. So in principle, it's only the applicant organization, if selected, that becomes the single beneficiary of the operating grant. Although I understand this might seem a bit confusing because we ask you to work with a network somehow, or to represent a network rather. So it can happen, in fact, during the implementation of the action that you need to subcontract some part of the work to or the activities to the members or of the network or to your partners. In this case, it's possible to do it through subcontracting, but in this case, be careful, because subcontracting for members is like subcontracting for any other contractor, and this means that you should always, well, first of all, of course, follow the rules, the purchasing rules of your organization, but also you should make sure that the contractors are chosen respecting the rules of best value for money and no conflict of interest. And then, yeah, the procurement rules of your organization would be also must be respected as well, of course. Is that sufficient, or if you want to add something, please?
No, I think it was very, very clear and very complete. Manuel, do you?
No, I think that was complete.
Good. Thanks a lot. I'm just looking at the next question. And what happens if some activities of the operating grant are also planned in the work program of the action grant? Actually, I mean, this question is directly related to the previous one that was in relation to submitting both an action grant and an operating grant. And I would just here reiterate what Manuel was saying. There has to be a very clear distinction between the two, both in terms of activities as well as in terms of accountancy. So I think this question was already answered. We'll just move to the next one. Could a European sectoral association which development is in line with the nature and biodiversity objectives of life be eligible to the operational grant? Manuel, could you take that one, please?
Yes, I can take this one. So what I can say here, that is important to look over all eligibility criteria. So not only the one that your organization is mainly aiming at, environment or nature objective. So you have to look the whole eligibility criteria and check that you fulfill all of them. So that is the main point here. So sometimes you also see, okay, my organization is working really mainly on this objective, but please check carefully all the eligibility criteria as provided for in the call for proposal.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Manuel. Yes, indeed. I mean, the complexity doesn't always allow to respond in a straightforward manner to simple questions, but the eligibility criteria are sufficiently complex in order to not allow us to give a yes or no answer to this question. One of the next question, one of the requirements of the eligibility for the operational grant is to have no commercial interest. How do you define this term? Eva, would you take this one, please?
Yes, I can try to reply. So of course, this is a grant for non-profit making entities. So clearly profit-making entities or entities that have a commercial interest or that are on the market or whose members are private companies would would hardly be eligible for funding for this grant. However, there might be gray areas where some of your members would be private companies, or this normally it's checked and it's quite straightforward. That's something we verify through the documents that are submitted with the application, and especially the statutes of the organization, the composition of the board, the co-funding, all the or even the website that we can check in case we have doubts. And if we still have doubts about the eligibility, in this case about the commercial interests of the applicant or of its members, we can still we would still ask for further information or documentation to check this eligibility criterion.
Thanks a lot, Eva, for clarifying this notion of no commercial interest. I see that we're jumping in the likes, and we now have a question that has been liked by 12 of you, which is a significant increase in comparison to what was before. Niels CCB, about the NGO Operating Grant Framework Partnership Agreement call, could you explain the difference between KPIs, so key performance indicators, and each work package impact or outcome indicators, or are they or can be the same? Eva, would it be okay for you to start? And if you need any completion or additional comments, I'll be happy to continue.
Yes, well, I can try to reply to this question, although we must make clear since the beginning that for operating grants, the KPIs are not quantitative, but only qualitative. This is Form C. In fact, it's the first time this is introduced in this call, and we realize that it's not easy for an applicant to really quantify the impact of its activities. However, in the work packages, you can go more into detail. That's really up to you, up to the applicant to decide how to define their own impact indicators and how to quantify them, how to measure them during the implementation. Do you want to complement, Joel or Manuel?
Manuel, do you have something you would like to add?
No, I think that Eva, you are right, and we know. I mean, that this had been a bit of discussion during these years. That because for many organizations it's quite difficult to quantify the impact. So some of the organizations are more advanced and they try to quantify. Others they are more qualitative. So it is up to you the way that you want to define. So and the C mandatory indicators, as Eva was indicated, this is standard for the whole life program. That's why you have there, and you have to try to give an attempt to reply to the question.
Exactly, Manuel. I think what you've both said basically sums it up, and will allow the applicant who has actually raised that question to proceed with the preparation of their indicators. I'll take the next question coming from Alice. Is a deliverable required for each work package in operating grant application? Manuel, would you be in a position to answer this question?
Yes, I will say yes. You will need a deliverable for each of the work package, at least one. I believe that in some of the work packages, you will have more activities and you might define more, but at least you should have one, yes.
Great. Thank you. And I would just like to add to that there is in the application form an indicative maximum number of deliverables, which is clearly something that is absolutely indicative. It's not something that would penalize your proposal if you were to go above the number of maximum deliverable indicatively indicated in the application form. Taking the next question, in the operating grant application, staff effort per work package, do we include number of months per specific person or number of months across all staff? Eva, would you take this question, please?
I should actually open the application form. I suppose this is the SGA application form.
Yes, it would
I must say,
concern the
I don't.
specific grant agreement.
Yes, I must say, I don't know. I don't have a reply,
In that case,
straightforward
Eva,
reply, but I would say that maybe it's better that you send this question to the functional mailbox.
Unless
what would you
Manuel
say?
has the information on the top of your head. I mean, you will realize that we don't memorize the application form, but maybe Manuel has an answer to give.
It is the first one, I believe. You have to include the number of months per specific person.
Thanks a lot, Manuel. So thanks a lot, Manuel, for memorizing the application form.
Yes, I think there is a list of persons in the SGA budget, right, Manuel? And it can be either persons or the type of function of the staff. And then for each line, for each person or type of staff, you would indicate the number of months and then the amounts relative to, I mean, the personal cost.
Yeah, to the given
I think,
person.
yeah, right, thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Manuel. And Alice is giving us a bit of a hard time because the next question, but thanks, Alice. I mean, it makes us realize sometimes some level of incoherences that we might have, but the term outputs is used in different ways. In framework partnership agreement, we speak about immediate as well as medium-term result impacts. Whereas in the operating grant application, deliverables are defined as outputs. And if I recall correctly, in the operating grant, the deliverables are actually the outputs that you decide to present to demonstrate progress on your project implementation. Eva, if you want to take it, that would be great. And once again, I can complement.
Yes, what I can take this, I mean, okay, we shouldn't focus too much on definitions, but in fact, you have outputs as immediate results. And what we call deliverables are a type of outputs. As Joël was saying, it's the outputs that you choose to show progress as evidence of your activities. So there is not really a contradiction. It's just a different way of saying the same thing, basically. Well, deliverables are outputs, but not all outputs are deliverables, only the ones that you select, so the most significant ones, I would say.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Manuel, do you want to add to this? Or?
Yes, I think that what is important also is to see the whole picture. It's like when you define your FPA, that is your, basically is the organization objective in the long term. So in the specific SGA, SGA, specific grant agreement, you will define, you know, what will be your result, the output during the first SGA. So I think that is, you have to do this connection. So maybe during the first SGA, you will deliver certain immediate or more short result, and then other result will come like later on in the FPA.
Thanks a lot for that additional comment, Manuel. Moving on to the next question. In the work package, what is meant by lead beneficiary? Is it the name of the applicant? I mean, I'll take that one because it's a super straightforward one as well. Yes, I mean, in this case, considering that we have a mono-beneficiary grant, the lead beneficiary in this case would indeed be the applicant. Taking the next question. In the framework partnership agreement application form under work package objectives, the instructions refer to 3.1, where no policies areas are mentioned. Should this be 1.3? I mean, I'm tempted to say maybe there was a typo to be honest. We don't have the time during the Slido to actually go back and verify potential typos. We will make sure that if there was a typo, we will address it in the frequently asked question, and it might indeed lead to a change in the application form. But let's take that after the Q&A live session. We will make sure to address that question through our frequently asked question update. And if you want a more rapid answer to this specific question, please send it to our mailbox, so you will have an immediate response within the next 24 hours, let's say. Budget. Can you confirm that a public body, oops, that slipped, yeah. Can you confirm that a public body can cover its 40% of co-financing? The question keeps on going back and forth, so now it's the second question in priority, but I'll still take it. Can cover its 40% of co-financing entirely with its own staff cost, daily person working in the project. I'm a bit intrigued by the term a public body, because essentially we're financing non-public bodies here. But let's concentrate on the part of the 40%. Eva, could you respond to this one?
Yes, I mean, assuming that we are talking about a non-profit making entity, so a private non-profit entity and not a public body. So the question would be on the co-financing. Well, first of all, the co-financing, I'm not sure this question is for operating grants, actually, because well, operating grants can finance up to 70% of eligible costs.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose they mean if the remaining 30% in this case would be, well,
actually, Eva, you have a point. I mean, I think this question was probably allocated to the wrong session. Essentially, because the co-financing rate for operating grants is up to 70%, so it should read here 30% instead of 40%, and then the operating grant does not finance public bodies. So let's decide that this question was not for this session, and let's move along. Next question, the specific grant agreement NGO grants. Instruction as to limit number of deliverables to 10 to 15 for the entire project. Does entire project refers to the entire proposal or to the work packages? Manuel, I mean, please answer to this one, and if that's okay for you.
I mean, normally it's referred, the deliverables refer for the entire project, but we have certain flexibility, as already mentioned by my colleagues. So if you have more deliverables, is not an issue. I think that this is coming from the application form are standard for the all life type of action. So it's also like operating grant, but also actions grant. So this is where we are coming from. But you will have more. For example, you will have some work packages with a few, and you will have other work packages with more. So there are certain flexibility here. So it's not absolute maximum 15 deliverables. So there can be more. This is just indicative.
Yes, thank you for that, Manuel. To decrease grant dependency, we want to generate own income besides example donation. What is allowed and what is the possible impact? Grant drop, cancel. That's a bit dramatic, but Eva, could you please maybe take this question, and we can address it jointly afterwards if necessary.
Yes, I'll try to think of a reply. I mean, if there is income generated by the action, it should be declared. Of course, it shouldn't be profit, but it's possible that a non-profit entity has income. So I don't think that as such it would prompt us to cancel or reject the proposal. So as long as the income is declared, it can even be used as co-financing. So I wouldn't see any issue there. Or Joël, do you have anything to add?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of possible we want to turn besides example donation? What is allowed? So in terms of what is allowed, clearly it has to be contributing to the objective of the work plan that you have provided. It needs to be presented in the application form as income generating activities. Its impact, I would not see it as a drop in the grant. You could consider it as part of the co-financing that is brought to the project. And as a basic rule, it should not generate profit. Clearly, I mean, income generating activities besides donations are not very common in the context of operating grants. But we would indeed welcome them in the sense that it does generate greater independency from our own sources of funding. Manuel, do you want to add to that, or?
No, I think that you covered properly. I don't think that is so dramatic. We will not drop or cancel.
No,
the
I mean, it's,
for sure.
yeah, I think it's a very different logic from action grants, where it could potentially have an impact on the EU grant in an action grant, but in the context of an operating grant, there is no reason. I mean, you would be potentially generating income for your co-financing, but that's
it's just as a way of diversification of your source of financing. So why not? And you properly explained this, and that is even positive, you know.
In terms of organizational development, it would be considered positively.
Yeah.
The next question is coming from Alice. Channels and means or staff allocations needed here? I'm assuming we're referring to a specific part of the application form. Eva or Manuel, would you, either one of you, would you take that question? Manuel, thank you.
Yes, I believe that you will need the staff, because from when we speak about channels and means, is the structure that the organization have in order, for example, to liaise with the European Commission services or working groups that you participated, or for example, on how the organization is working on the ground, helping the implementation of the EU policy or legislation. So you will need the staff allocated to that structure, because it's the staff who will run implement your work program. So it's the channels and means, in my opinion, they do have associated the staff behind. Yeah,
yes,
so they are
indeed.
needed.
Yes, thanks a lot for that, Manuel. We'll take the next question. In previous year, framework partnership agreement beneficiary who received operating grants in previous years had a grant limit based on previous grants received. Now, not anymore. Eva, it's a straightforward one.
Yes, I can take this one. No, in fact, there was this kind of ceiling for in the previous calls that operating grants beneficiaries couldn't request more than what was requested in the past, in the previous years. And this in this call, this ceiling has been removed. So basically, applicants can ask more than what was requested in the previous years if they were already beneficiaries in the past. The only ceilings now are the 700,000 euros maximum per year per SGA, and of course the 70% maximum EU funding. Do you want to add anything, Joel or Manuel?
I want to mention something that I believe that is important. We all know that we have a limited budget for this program or for this specific action, and we receive a lot of proposals with good quality. So I believe that those applicants that are thinking or they are considering to request more than what they have been requesting so far, they should properly justify in the application. So they need to properly justify because it's important. So
yes,
we have
right
limited resources, and so now to come suddenly with a really high increase of EU requested money, it has to be properly justified.
Yes, no, you're right to point out that, and also because value for money is one of the criteria for the evaluation, so shouldn't be arbitrarily increased. But
yes,
still.
indeed. I mean, the justification would be that your work plan has significantly increased, and the areas of intervention that you're covering are including now new areas in comparison to what was the case in the past. I mean, that type of explanation would indeed allow us to better assess the relevance of an increased amount. But there is no more ceilings. I mean, except for the 700,000, there is no more ceilings in relation to what was the past grant. Thanks a lot. We'll move to a bit more of semantic. Is there any difference between tasks and activities in the work packages?
I will say that no.
Yes.
Just you reply already, Joel.
Yeah, I think, I mean, do what we don't do, be coherent, in a way is the answer. If you decide that a task is a task, then you explain it, well, you present it as such in your application form, and you ensure that consistency throughout.
I would say that tasks are subdivisions of the work packages, and activities is a more generic word, but okay, let's not.
You could indeed decide that and then coherently present it through your application form, and that would make perfect sense. It's up to the applicant,
really.
Yes. So the next one, operating grant. This is a mono-beneficiary grant. This means that there is only one participant in the administrative forms. Could you confirm? Yes, we confirm indeed. It's a mono-beneficiary grant. You will have noticed that the new e-granting system is not is to some extent tailored to each call, but there are some elements that remain generic across all calls, and it's the case for this specific aspect. Where you indeed could introduce other participants, but in the context of this specific call, it's a mono-beneficiary, so only one participant. The next question, at NGO call, do we still have to fill the monthly timesheets? Is it fine only the digital format? So it's interesting. It's a question that should arise when we sign contracts, but we can take it at this stage. Manuel, are you feeling comfortable with it?
Yes, the reply is that you have to fill the monthly timesheet, so you have to comply with the live regulation rule for the timesheet. Yeah. So either can be digital, or is just the practice of the organization, the internal practice of the organization, and to make sure that you comply with the requirement of the grant agreement in this respect of the timesheet. But you will have to compile. Yes.
Yes, indeed. I mean, that sounds like we haven't made any improvement in terms of simplification, but this is basically the only evidence that you will be asked to submit with your report. It's not the only evidence that you're asked to keep. You're asked to keep everything for 5 years, but it's the only supporting documents that you would be supporting documents related to personal costs, including timesheets and other supporting documents, is what we would ask. Moving to the next question. Are channels expected for work package on organizational development? In the context of organizational development, what would be a channel? Manuel.
I can take this
channels
one.
And OD.
Channels. I don't see that they are needed channels for the internal organizational development of the organization. If you want to put in place, it's up to you, the internal rule that you will have. I don't know if that is the way that you want to track the training of the staff or something like that. But in principle, I don't think that you will need a channel for the organizational development policy of the organization.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for that, Manuel. I hope it clarifies the notion of channel in the context of organizational development. In previous application forms for a framework partnership agreement for operating grants, there was space to describe the context of your work package, an introduction. Where can we do this now? Eva, you our application form expert.
Yes, well, I can try to reply. Well, there is a part in the B form of the application that is more general. So you have an abstract, you have a description of the participants, you have a description of the policies that you want to address and of the problems you want to tackle. And I think that's where you would put this type of information, in particular on relevance section. You have the profile, the mission, the vision of the applicant, the contribution to European Union policy, and that's where you put really the policies you want to address and you want to shape. I would say that's where you insert kind of background information. Is that sufficient as a reply?
I think it is. And if the applicant who raised this question is really struggling with a specific space where to fit it, we can, he or she can send the question, and we will respond to it with a very precise location. But what you said, Eva, is entirely correct. So and should help. Are they, moving on to the next question, are there any costs that would not be eligible under the 50% flat rate for operating grants? And will we need to evidence spend against the 50% flat rate? So I'll take this question. I think it relates as well to what I was saying earlier on. There are always costs that are not eligible. And we're not going to list them here because it could potentially take a while. What I strongly suggest is for you to read in details the model grant agreement that is published with the call. And you will see there that Article 6, if I recall correctly, lists what are non-eligible costs. And that should allow you to define what is not eligible under the 50% flat rate. And will we need to evidence spend against the 50% flat rate? So as I was saying early on, this is a major simplification under this goal, is that you are asked to declare your personal costs and to provide evidence and supporting documents for it when submitting your report and your payment requests. It's not the case for the costs that fall under the 50% flat rate. So you will not be asked to present evidence. However, you must keep this evidence in accordance to your own accounting system. Why? Because we always reserve ourselves the right to do on-the-spot check, to carry out audits up to 5 years after the end of the implementation of the project. So it's important for you to know that. It's also part of the contract that any beneficiary would sign, that there is a retention of evidence and supporting agreement for all costs incurred in the context of the operating grant. It's the same rules as for the action grants. Moving to the next question. In the framework partnership agreement application form under work package objective, should we link to our organization objectives or EU objectives? Manuel.
I can take that one.
Yes.
You should link to your organization objective, of course.
Which hopefully are in line with the EU objectives.
Clearly, your organization is working, on environment or climate actions, including the clean energy transition for sure. So,
absolutely.
But, yeah.
Thanks a lot for that. Next question. We need more pages to fill properly the application form. Is it possible to get an extension on the number of pages for both the FPA and the SGA? Manuel?
I can take
yes,
this one
thank
as well. It is not possible, so it is mandatory to follow the instruction. It is not possible to remove the instruction, so you need to, they need to be kept in the application, and you need to follow clearly. So the front, the size, everything. So it is not possible. And here we're speaking about an issue of equal treatment. So it's a limit number of pages for everyone. So all the applicants have the same space to properly explain and provide the information in the application. And it can also be treated as it can have an impact on the eligibility, because if you provide more information longer than the pages stated in the call for proposal, those information will be cut and it will not be evaluated. So please follow clearly the instruction, and it is not possible to remove them.
Yeah, and what I would add to that, and there was actually a frequently asked question on our LIFE website in relation to that, is that you ask to list the member of organization of your network, and that can be quite space consuming. And there is the possibility for you to list only the key members and to attach an annex where the members are more detailed and further listed in order not to eat up the space that you have, the limited space that you have, admittedly, with long lists of member organization. But I only can reiterate what Manuel said. We're here even speaking about potential admissibility. So if you provide us with Fund 6 text, we could reject the proposal on that ground. Time is flying. We'll just take a couple more questions and then we'll have to resume with our session. In operating ground application, staff effort per work package, what is lead participant number and name? Eva, can you rapidly respond to this one?
Yes, I can quickly reply. Well, as Manuel was pointing out, it's a standard form. So when we talk about lead participant concerning operating grants, it's a mono-beneficiary grant. So it's always about the main applicants, which will be the beneficiary if selected. So yeah, don't get confused with these instructions. Just put the name of the organization. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, I think it is, Eva. Thanks for that. I'll just take the last question, I believe, as we're really coming to the end of this session. At NGO Call, if an employee works 100% on live activities with a part-time contract in 2022, can we move to a full-time contract under live 2023-2024? Manuel, are you comfortable with answering this?
It is possible. It is justified that the activity you require extra effort for the members, for a specific staff member. So it's not a problem. I don't see any problem. Why not? You can go from this half-time or part-time contract to a full-time contract. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and obviously the detailed budget is not something that we asked in the FPA proposal, the Framework Partnership Agreement. It's something that is asked in the SGA proposal, and it's an annual proposal that one has to submit. So that change can occur between 2 years indeed. Very, very last question, and then I really close it. How can we prove the EU dimension and independence of our NGO? Eva, this is an important one.
Yes, I can try to reply. So this is, of course, about the eligibility criteria of the evaluation. Applicants have to prove that they are independent from notably public authorities, commercial interest, political parties, and so on. And also they have to prove they have a European dimension, in fact, but there are also other criteria. To prove the European Union dimension, we ask applicants to represent at least or to cover at least 3 European Union countries. And this is also reflected in the proposal itself, and it will be also assessed with the award criterion on the EU dimension of the application. Meaning, of course, also not only the coverage, but also whether they properly address European Union policies and what is the impact. And then to prove the independence of the NGO, we also check, of course, the documents that are sent, that are submitted with the application, notably the statutes, the CVs, the composition of the board, and generally it's quite easy to assess the independence. But there are some cases where it's more complicated, and in those cases, if it's not so straightforward, we might come back to the applicant and ask for further documents or more information to be able to assess this criterion. Anything to add or complement, Joël?
No, again, very clear answer here, Eva, and it closes very nicely because it's just to tell you that we're there to still answer your question. We haven't been able to take them all this time, but you obviously are free to send them to the CNEA Life NGO functional mailbox. Please do note that we have a dedicated functional mailbox for the NGO calls for proposals, CNEA Life NGO, and we will also do the effort of updating our frequently asked question on the basis of the Slido questions that we've received for this Q&A session. We will now have a coffee break. During that break, you will have the pleasure of seeing a video with the Life Award finalist for this year. The session will reconvene at 11 o'clock with the Life Clean Energy Transition session that will be moderated by my colleagues Annette Jeanne and Maria Laguna. Please do take note of the fact that they have their own dedicated Slido for the Life 21 Clean Energy Transition call, where you will be able to post your question and to like the ones that are already there. We thank you for your participation. We wish you the best of luck in the preparation of your application form. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Manuel. I think this was very productive and hopefully provided the help needed.
Thank you, Joël, and all the best.
Joël.
All the best to
Goodbye.
applicants. Bye.
Good luck.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to unmute and I hope now it will remain unmute. Apologies for this small hiccup. Let's start. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to the participants for today's live question and answer session. A question and answer session on the subprogram Life Clean Energy Transition. This is part of our two-day menu that we are offering to potential applicants in the framework of the live call, which was published in the summer. This question and answer session is an opportunity for you potential applicants to raise your questions on our specific call, Clean Energy Transition, which is offering funding opportunities in the frame of the clean energy transition. So those of you who have already seen the call, you know that we have 18 funding topics which are offered as an opportunity. We have offered also specifically dedicated information sessions in the form of a remote information day, if you wish, that we've published in the summertime, being of course aware that this needs to live on a bit longer than a live session, so we've recorded all of those. Now we do hope that many of you had the opportunity to watch the dedicated information sessions on those funding topics and opportunities that you would be most compelled to be interested in, where you believe you have a mission to drive and an agenda to move forward. We also hope that in case you have general questions on the funding principles and the mechanics, the practicalities of how life is operating, that you had the chance to participate in the general session, which was offered yesterday morning. This session now is devoted to the clean energy transition opportunities. And with the next slide, as a first entrance, we'll offer you a quick zoom into the architecture of the new LIFE program, which has been renewed now for the next 7 years, and which comprises 4 subprograms: one subprogram on nature and biodiversity, one subprogram on circular economy, one subprogram on the quality of life, and moving over to those subprograms that actually our unit, our energy and climate unit in CINEA, is responsible for: the climate mitigation and adaptation subprogram, and the focus of this session now, the clean energy transition program, the main funding program for enabling actions for energy efficiency and renewable energy policy. Now, for those of you who know us, you will know that LIFE continues actually a successful journey that we've undertaken previously under the umbrella of Horizon 2020 with an energy efficiency funding over the last 7 years. So as such, the Clean Energy Transition Program is not a new funding instrument in the envelope of the European Commission, but it has been brought under the umbrella of LIFE. For those of us who've been working with us before, you'll know that we've funded over the last 7 years about, just to give you a scale, about 400 projects in all of the key areas of energy efficiency, of which more than 200 are actually very much still alive and ongoing. And so, of course, LIFE set now builds very much on these experiences and carries the mission of the program further, just as much as, of course, also the policy environment is moving very fast and adapting. And as this is a program directly responding to policy needs, obviously also the substance of the funding opportunities, they evolve with that alongside. Now, if you look at the next slide, here, just a few words, basically, really in a nutshell, to frame the session of today, to frame the 18 funding topics on which you have the opportunity today to ask your questions. All of them would be united under those following objectives, principles, but also desires, obviously. What this program is looking for is excellent proposals which support the mission of the program in really working at the market end of the energy transition. So we're looking to break market barriers, working together with, of course, our colleagues who are driving the research and innovation agenda, and which is continuing under the Horizon Europe umbrella. We are looking for proposals which respond to fairly detailed call requirements, very specific policy needs, to offer very specific opportunities for your work to be carried in this context. And this is why you will discover, if you have not done it already, but you will discover that the funding topics are fairly described and giving you really a good frame in order to place your expertise, your abilities, and your agenda that you would like to drive in your context. We're looking for actors who are ready to create large European multi-actor consortia in order to ensure a European-wide referencing, relevance, but also, of course, validation and replication of its results. And of course, with all of this, to support directly the uptake and the implementation of EU legislation, EU targets, EU initiatives with real impact on the ground. Now that was basically a quick helicopter view, zoom in on the mission of the program. Many aspects and way to read this will of course come through in the thematic sessions that we've prepared for today. With the next slide, you can see how we are structuring this 2-hour session. As we do have 18 topics on the menu with this call, which was published, we suggest that we group them in 6 clusters for today, which will help us keeping a rhythm, but hopefully also giving the chance to every one of you who would like to pose a specific question to actually find your place. So we will start with the citizen-centric topics with involving empowering citizens in the transition. We will then move in the second cluster to clean and smart energy in buildings. We will then look at the opportunities for mobilizing investment at local level, notably the case of home renovation services as well. We will then be looking to the framework, to the policy framework at all levels, national, regional policy, local policy framework, to support the transition, to then address skills, building skills and the capacity of industry and the service sector, and then to conclude with a specific cluster on attracting private finance for sustainable energy. Of course, each of those clusters will be accompanied by our specialists, and that is maybe a good point to introduce the team. My name is Annette Jahn, and I will be moderating together with my colleague Maria Leguna the different thematic sessions. We have our 2 colleagues who are doing the great work in the back office and who are actually our link to you, Anna Sinbages and Stamatis Sivitos, who will be channeling your questions to the open public. We've got, of course, with us Nathalie Clicquot, who's our main chef d'orchestre of the session, and we have our 15 specialists who are responsible and in charge of managing the funding topics and the projects in the related specific technical areas. 15 colleagues who are with us, who will be available to answer your questions and who will be introduced by the moderator in each of the cluster time windows when they come. Now, a small practical of how does this work in practice. With the next slide, please. We can see your reference for the Slido session. So basically, if you're listening to us, you will have hopefully the Slido application next to you, either on your mobile or on your computer. Slido invites you to post questions. Either you have done it already, or you can do this at any time during these 2-hour sessions. For the efficiency and the speediness of our back office, two small hints. If you put to your question a keyword which relates us to the topic that you're most interested in, like you're most interested in the work on energy poverty, don't hesitate to put this in the question. It helps us being speedy in ventilating the question to the public space. And the second hint would be if you were trying to post your question when you now have new questions in the time window when we're actually dealing with these topics in the different clusters, that would be ideal. But please don't worry if you have an inspirational question, just post it and we'll try to filter this through with our back office support. Just one word on the questions. We, of course, will make all efforts to address as many questions as possible. They're to the benefit for all of us. And our team of specialists, as I said, they will answer to you orally and live, and you will see them and hear them. Now, the tool does not allow us to see you, which is maybe a small regret. Having said this, the benefit is that we will have a fair amount of questions that we can process for the benefit of all of the participants. Now, in case we were not able to respond to all of the questions, please mind that we will not be able to answer them in this tool. So in this case, if you feel that your question was not answered yet, picked up, or that you simply have an additional question at any point in time, the same specialists are exactly behind this functional email box through which we channel all of the questions. And you're, of course, more than welcome to use this functional email box either after the session or, of course, at any point in time of your application process. We are not able to, obviously, judge or receive any pre-application, but we can, of course, provide all of the technical insights to help clarifying the scope and the meaning of the funding topic so that you can prepare your work at best, which in turn will make the program perform at its best and in the benefit of the policy objectives that we are all committing our professional lives to. Now, with this, I would say without further commenting, I would suggest that we start with the first cluster. I'm very happy to move the floor to my colleague Maria Leguna, who will host the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette, and welcome to all of you participating in this question and answer session. So we'll start, as Annette said, with answering the questions on this first cluster on involving and empowering citizens in the energy transition. Under this cluster, we have 3 topics. One topic addressing building interventions in vulnerable districts, mainly addressing the topic of energy poverty and how we can accelerate the renovation rate of energy poor households. We have another topic on energy communities, looking at support mechanisms to accelerate the implementation of energy communities in Europe, looking in particular in the cooperation with local authorities and how we can boost these initiatives. And we have a third topic looking at the clean energy transition and the role of coal regions in transition. For this cluster, for these 3 topics, I have two colleagues working on these topics that will be answering the questions we are posting on Slido. I have on the one hand Nina Klemola. She will be dealing with the questions on energy poverty. She is responsible on energy poverty in our unit. And I will have also with us Talia Brun, which she will be answering the questions on energy communities. She's responsible for this area of work in the unit and also in the topic of coal regions. So I will start with the questions. I like the back office to present the questions that we have for you. So we have here the first questions for this cluster. I see that you are liking the questions, so this is very good. If you like the questions, they will get more chances to be answered by our colleagues. We'll try the best to answer most of the questions that with the time that we have. But of course, as Annette said, if the questions are not answered, please address them to the functional mailbox. You will get a reminder of the email address several times during this session. So I'll start with the first question highlighted. It has 10 likes already. So the question is, do cities need to be part in the consortium for the specific topic on energy communities? So this question is to Talia. Talia, please, the floor is yours.
So thanks for the question. So I guess that the short answer to this question is no. They don't need to be part of the consortium. It's not an eligibility criteria in the topic text, but if you read the topic text carefully, you'll realize that it is crucial to demonstrate in your proposal that you have the full commitment or the full kind of support of the relevant local or regional authority. One way of doing that, one very robust way of doing that is by making them part of your consortium. It's not the only way. You could also do it otherwise. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Talia, for the answer. So very clear, it's not an eligibility, but a tip: look carefully at the topic text, because indeed, you will get the hints on how to build a strong consortium when looking at the scope and the objectives described in the topic text. Okay, we have a second question here. In this time also it's on energy poverty, so I will address the question to Nina. So the question is, are proposals expected to implement the vulnerable district renovation roadmaps already during the project lifetime? So Nina, please.
Yes, so thank you. The short answer is yes. The projects are expected to at least begin implementation of the developed roadmaps already during the project lifetime. However, if the proposed action only puts in place the framework for the implementation, then it's up to you as the proposers to convince the expert evaluators in your proposal why the implementation would not be realistic or feasible during the action, and in that case to demonstrate a very robust work plan to support this argumentation and to really include the plans on how you will secure the financing, how you will secure the commitment of all the relevant stakeholders and actors to implement the project.
Okay, very clear, Nina. Nothing to add from my side. But the message to pass, of course, we want ambition in the proposals, but also they have to be realistic. So you, as a consortium, you will have to put in the proposal all the elements to convince the evaluator on your way forward. Okay, thanks very much. Next question. So I read it loud to help the back office to highlight it. So a lot of potential actions are mentioned under the energy communities topic. Does our proposal need to cover all?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So basically the answer is a little bit different for the different scopes. So as you know, this is a topic which has two different scopes, A and B. The scope A is about collaboration between local authorities and energy communities, and there are 4 bullet points, so 4 types of potential actions that are mentioned, and it is necessary that your proposal includes at least 3 out of the 4. So that's for scope A. For scope B, however, you have a list of actions that could be implemented, but none of them is compulsory. So they are just ideas. And you will have to design integrated services to develop, to support energy communities, and you may want to include some of these. Some of these are kind of very generic, and so I would expect that some of those ideas would be useful for proponents, but it's not a necessity. It's not necessary at all that you cover any of the points evoked by the topic text for this second scope.
Thanks, Talia, for the answer. Very clear. So bear in mind, read the topic test. There are 2 scopes, 2 different scopes, clearly different, and proposals are not expected to address both scopes in one proposal. So either you address scope A or either you address scope B in your proposal. Thanks, Talia. We continue with the questions then. What are some of the energy poverty and building renovation projects that could proposals consider? So another question on energy poverty, Nina, if you can answer.
Yes, thank you. So here there's a lot of material actually that that we could direct you to. There's also frequently asked questions on this that I suggest you have a look at to get also the links to the documents that I mentioned. So first of all, I would suggest that you for energy poverty look specifically at the European Commission recommendation on energy poverty that was released last October, and which also was accompanied by a very detailed guidance document that gives you examples and sort of good practices. Of course, the Commission has also published its preliminary analyses of the long-term renovation strategies of several member states that also include measures to tackle energy poverty. That could be a good starting point. And in addition to this, there's also, of course, the EU Energy Poverty Observatory and its successor, the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub, which is a database with many relevant projects and initiatives that you can have a look at and that you should really build on in order to not do the same things again. At the same time, there are also many previous research projects on that have demonstrated industrialized renovation approaches. And these, there are particularly two publications that I would refer you to. Again, the links are in the frequently asked questions. One that looks at the high energy performing buildings projects, and another one looking at deep renovation. In addition, in the Info Day presentation on this topic, there is also a slide giving some specific project examples that you can have a look at. So there's a wealth of information, and many of the renovation projects have also focused on social housing, which would obviously be also very relevant for this LifeSet topic.
Thanks, Nina, for the very comprehensive answer. So yes, so there's a lot of information. Don't repeat what's already been done. And indeed, I mean, the tip that Annette already mentioned before, look at the recordings of the info session with all the presentation of the topics by our colleagues, because you will have also examples of relevant previous projects in most of the presentations. So we keep on going to next question. We'll follow the likes. So I'll take the question on the just transition mechanism. That's for you, Talia. So do all projects need to seek funding from the just transition mechanism under the topic on coal, peat and oil shale regions?
Thanks for the question. So basically here, a stated aim of the topic is indeed to maximize spending of the just transition mechanism in the area of clean energy transition, so either in energy efficiency or renewables. So the short answer would be yes. I mean, we would expect that the actions coming out of your projects would seek this funding, but by no means this should be your exclusive funding opportunity that you're looking at. So we would expect you to also look into other forms of private or public funding where relevant.
Okay, thanks Talia for it. I see there is a question that is not anonymous, so it's always nice to have a question from somebody who presents themselves. So thanks Josie Ospina for the question. So I help the back office to highlight the question. So by reading it, so can sustainable transport proposals be included in the energy communities topic? So that's for you, Talia.
Yeah, so as you see, if you read the text carefully, you will see that the topic is very open in this sense. So it does not want to close itself to just renewable energy generation, for instance, for energy communities. So proposals could include really any action in the field of sustainable energy, and that includes e-mobility and transport projects as well as renovation, generation, etc. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Very clear, Talia. So thanks, Jose, again for the question. I keep answering on the order of likes. Well, we have here some questions with the same number of likes. So I'll start with the first one on the top, again on the coal regions topic, Talia. So the question is which coal regions are eligible under this topic?
So basically, eligible regions include any region that has ongoing coal, peat, or shale oil extraction activities as defined by the EU Initiative for Coal Regions in Transition. So I invite you to look at that and see if you're eligible, and by all means indicate that in your proposal. So I would think that it's an important discussion to kind of to include in the introduction of your proposal. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Talia. We have Jose. It's quite active, so we'll have another question from Jose here. So there are two questions, both on the energy communities topic. So I read both of them and see whether Talia can reply, because yeah, time is ticking and we'll soon close this cluster. So the first question is from Jose: is innovation required for the Life 21, so for the energy communities topic, and which type of technical and social innovation?
So the short answer would be no. So the topic is not prescriptive in this sense. You could very well replicate successful examples that successful kind of best practices from elsewhere and just scale them up or just transpose them to different communities, and that would be enough. So no particularly innovative element is required. Of course, it is welcome. So innovative ideas are always interesting to explore. Probably experts would like them, but it's really the topic. It's not prescriptive in this sense.
And then there's another question from Jose, which will coherence with local authorities' strategies be required for the energy communities topic?
This is a very tricky question. Basically, what the topic says is that you should really ensure that the local and regional authorities are behind your proposal. So that means that probably for them to support the action that you're going to propose, it would need to be coherent or to some extent with what they have in mind. But I don't think, I mean, there is no specific requirement as to local authority strategies. But I mean, it could very well be that a local authority that doesn't have a specific strategy on local energy communities would be supportive of your idea, and that's fine. That would be enough.
Thanks, Talia, for the answer. Very clear. I think we will need to move soon to the next cluster of questions. I'm looking a bit of the questions so that we to see whether we have covered all topics. We have questions for the 3 topics, so I think it's been quite balanced. There's a question already on the partnership on the energy communities topic. This has already been answered, so it's not an eligibility criteria, but of course, if you look at the topic test, local authorities should have a strong role in the project activities. There is a topic on energy poverty, Nina, on so I read it loud. Do the roadmaps that can be developed under the energy poverty topic need to cover deep retrofit measures?
Yes, thank you for the question. So yes, it's mentioned under the scope that the solution should include already proven measures for deep renovation. And this is applicable to all 3 bullet points under the scope. So the roadmaps do not need to have the industrialized or modular approaches, the prefabricated approaches that are mentioned in the first bullet point, but they should include deep renovation as part of the roadmaps. So we're not looking for roadmaps that only focus on low-cost measures or small equipment purchases.
Okay, thanks. And I think I'll take a final question. I'll take the one with the most number of likes. So, what are you expecting in terms of citizen engagement for the topic on coal regions? So in this case, Talia, the question is addressed to you. Sorry.
Yeah, so as you have seen, probably the topic text insists very much on the importance of citizen and local community engagement in your projects. And so basically what is expected is that you go beyond just information sessions or Q&A sessions with the community, or kind of consultations, small consultations where people can ask a few questions and give you a bit of feedback. I think that what is expected here is that you integrate really civil society in the design and also probably in the implementation of the action. So you need to find a way to take the local community along in your project, and that should be really reflected in your work plan.
Yeah, and this is linked to the next question, Talia. So whether energy communities can participate in a coal regions topic.
Yeah.
So I assume the answer is that, of course, this is a way to demonstrate the citizen engagement, so that this should be encouraged somehow.
Yes, of course they can participate. I mean, like for any kind of proposal, you need to be careful at justifying why each of the actors is there. But local energy communities could be a very suitable partner to ensure citizen engagement in certain regions. So of course.
Thanks. And I think we're going to close now, and I'm just going to try to answer in a bulk the questions that I'm seeing here from Jose and from Amaro. So thanks for your questions. Your questions there are a lot about the eligibility and how to build up the consortium. There is no requirements on eligibility on the type of factors that you need to involve to put a proposal forward. Of course, if you look carefully about the call text, you will need which type of factors you will need to engage to have a strong proposal and to have the desired impact. So it could be energy communities, local authorities, NGO. You will have to justify the choice of your partnership. And in the work criteria, if you look at the call documents, there's a work criteria. We will analyze the consortium and the skills and expertise of the consortium to develop the activities and to have the impact that is needed. So it's up to you to set up your consortium, but of course you have to be justified. The most relevant the actors are, the stronger consortium you will have. So I think with that explanation, I answer more or less to all the questions around the type of partnership and consortia, and then we can move to the next cluster so that we are able to in this 2 hours to answer the questions for all topics. So thanks a lot, Nina and Talia, for answering the questions. And then I move to cluster 2. So on clean energy, clean and smart energy in buildings. So topic supporting the renovation wave. Here we have 4 topics, not 3. Like before, so we have a topic on building renovation, looking at the rollout of industrialized deep renovation solutions. And we'll have our colleague Luca Angelino answering the questions on this topic. Then we have a topic looking on cooling, facing the increase in cooling demand of buildings in the coming years, looking at the increase of the cooling demand and how to develop strategies to tackle it. And we'll have our colleague Piotr Weiss answering the questions. Then we have a topic on the smart readiness indicator and implementation of this indicator in European buildings with Ulrike Nuschler will be answering these questions on this topic. And we have a topic as well on innovative business models and contractual schemes for a smart and sector integrated energy services, and will be also Uli Nuschler answering the questions. So with the introduction, I'll ask the colleagues to switch off their cameras, and then we'll start with the slide of questions that we have for these 4 topics. Yeah. I'm waiting to have the slide of questions. So yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. So we'll start with the first question that has 13 likes. So it's a good questions to start with. So the question is on the building renovation topic. So for you, Luca, do we have to address one or more specific type of buildings?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this question. Well, the call is not prescriptive in that regard. So this is the short answer. Proposals can address either one or multiple segments in the building stock. For example, single-family houses or multi-apartment buildings, residential or non-residential buildings, public or private buildings. What is really key is that proposals identify and address tailored barriers for each of the segments they want to address. And that's a key point. An example, just to give one, is disruption for occupants, which is really a prominent barrier in the residential sector. That can also be a barrier sometimes in other segments of the building stock. So that's the encouragement is really to look at the barriers and then select one or multiple segments in the building stock.
Thanks, Luca, very clear. Then we'll go to another question. Since we have already addressed a question on building renovation, I'll select a question on another topic. So for the smart service topic, the question is, what does the focus on buildings means? Will e-mobility, for example, be out of scope? So the question is for you, Uli. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Maybe you have seen the topic text, and it says that in the scope of the topic, they're services that are provided in, for, or linked to buildings. So it's in the widest sense, the building nexus is really in the widest sense. Maybe it's easier if I tell you what it would not be in scope. It would be, for example, services on a large scale, industrial scale, for example, about electricity and gas networks and the sector integration across these. This would not be typically directly in the scope. But if you look specifically at e-mobility, for example, buildings are a facilitator for e-mobility, and e-mobility is mentioned in the key legislation, not only in the EPBD, but also for the smart readiness indicator. So e-mobility would be clearly in scope of the topic, but it should be linked to buildings. So it should not be just exist as an area in itself, but it should be linked to buildings. And most of the services that you can think of would anyway be somehow either provided in, for, or linked to buildings. I hope that is a clear answer.
Yeah, very clear, Uli, and how e-mobility can provide flexibility. And then we move to the next question. I'll choose a question on cooling, so like this we can address another topic that is not being yet addressed. So the question is, we plan to develop strategies how to deal with the cooling demand in public office buildings and schools. Can we apply in the cooling topic? So Piotr, the question is for you.
Thank you, Maria. I think that the answer to the question can be found also in the topic description. And as it is mentioned in the topic, the action under this topic should pay particular attention to residential buildings and consider aspects related to the lifestyle also. Then the proposal should cover both residential and non-residential buildings. Of course, answer to this question is yes. The consortium can provide the proposal, but during the evaluation, it will probably happen that the experts evaluate this proposal lower.
Okay. Thanks, Piotr. So the idea is that indeed, if you look at the topic test, there's a focus on residential buildings. So a proposal just addressing public buildings will not be enough, because it's clear and it's clearly written that the particular focus should be on residential buildings. Thanks, Piotr. Very, very clear. We go to another topic. So on building renovation topic, that's a proposal need to cover all the aspects listed in the scope. So it's for you, Luca.
Yes, thanks also for this question. Again, a short answer will be no. There is no such a strict requirement to cover all the aspects that we mentioned under the scope. We mentioned a few of them. What is really key is to identify key barriers for the specific segments, as mentioned in the previous answer, and from there, so to try to facilitate a greater market uptake of industrialized deep renovation solutions, which have already been, most of them or some of them have already been successfully demonstrated in innovation actions funded under the Horizon 2020 program, but also in other programs, either at the European level or on the national level. So here again, the focus is not to cover all the aspects, but to identify the most relevant ones and to focus on market barriers to achieve the objective, the ultimate objective, which is to increase the depth and the volume of energy renovation in Europe.
Okay, thank you, Luca. I see that there are two questions. I wanted to ask a question on the smart readiness because we have not yet addressed the question on that topic. So I'm looking at the slides. Sorry, I need a seconds to read them. Yeah, so we have here a question on the smart readiness and what policy documents will need to be typically taken into account for the topic on a smart readiness.
And that's probably me.
Yeah, sorry, yes, please.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, there are some obvious policy documents that you should take into account when you apply under this topic, and that's the EPBD, also the initiative of the renovation wave, and they're the delegated acts that are linked to the smart readiness indicator directly. But I think what should also be mentioned here, and that this is not mentioned in the topic, that the European Commission, so DG ENER, has been carrying out several technical studies, and the latest of it is about to issue guidance documents like a calculation methodology, and that is going to be published soon. So if you intend to apply under this topic, then it would be very good if you just followed up closely what is coming out of those studies, because they are then really have a very technical and direct impact on the implementation. And this is actually what you should be supporting, the direct implementation of the smart readiness indicator.
Thanks, Uli. Very clear. The topic is supporting the implementation of this indicator, and of course, the proposals will have to fit with the policy requirements and the policy developments. There is a topic now, a question, sorry, with 12 likes, so we'll go for that question. So on building renovation, again for you, Luca. So the question is, can the cost of purchasing and installing equipment and or demonstrating retrofitting solutions be eligible for funding?
Yes, thanks again for this question. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the objective is really to tackle market barriers. For this reason, we don't expect the actual renovation works to be funded, so a cost to be eligible, but we really want to proposals to look at market barriers. However, in very rare cases, and when it's really limited, and when it's absolutely fundamental to achieve the objective, the purpose of the action, some limited costs may be accepted. So it depends very much on the purpose and how these are really the degree of these costs and the fundamental importance for the achievement of the action.
Okay, Luca, very clear. So it's purchasing costs and renovation, purely bricks are not the main aim of the project, but it could be considered depending on what is putting forward, if it's limited somehow, but it will be up to the proposals to put their case forward. Okay, very good. Let's continue a little bit, then we'll move to the next cluster to allow for a bit of answering for all topics, and so to have a balanced session. We'll take a question on cooling now for you, Piotr. On the question, it's I read it loud. It says there are many different requirements and activities listed in the cooling topic description. Should our proposal deal with all of them?
Thank you for the question. Yes, it's true. There are some requirements in the topic, and you should keep also all time in mind that you should respond to detailed requirements. And also during the evaluation, experts are looking for all points and comparing your proposal to the topic description. It means, for instance, that having two proposals and one proposal refers to all requirements and the second proposal refers to part of them, of course, the second proposal will be scored lower than the previous one. then it's better for you to deal with all requirements that are written also in the call.
Thank you, Piotr. So the advice here to proposals is again to look at the topic tags, because it's very clearly written in which cases, in which topics you are expected to cover all aspects, or in which topics you are expected, because they are not all the same in the way they are described. You could consider focusing on one activities or others. So it will really depend on the topic and what is required on the topic. So please look carefully at each topic description to understand when all activities listed are required, or when you could focus only on a set of activities.
Yes, and in this case, for instance, an excellent proposal should appropriately address and cover all aspects of the call.
Thanks a lot, Pierre, for the clarification. We'll take the last question on smart readiness. We have a question here. So for you, Uli, so the top here, well, it's the same. So voilà, what I was saying, maybe you want to complement a bit, Uli, because here we have the same question. So for this specific topic on smart readiness, the topic lists many different areas and activities. Do they all need to be addressed? And if not, how many?
Yeah, here indeed it's a similar question, but I think the answer would be different. And here really it's not about covering everything, because it's really policy implementation, support for member states, market uptake, public financing. So it's many different activities, and a proposal that covers all would hardly be credible. So it's important. So the focus is really that your action is in itself consistent. Having said that, you also need to make sure that you yield a good impact. So if it's too narrow and too specific, then you might, and you're in competition with other proposals, then your proposal might also be found not to be sufficiently impactful. So it's a balance to strike, but we would rely on you, and we would trust in you that you know what is best and what is really needed. And that would also then give us, let's say, this is how you have to qualify yourself to see what is needed, what is missing, and how can I have an impact? And that's part of the competition.
Thanks, Uli, very clear. So nice compliment to the previous answer. There are only two questions left, but we are running out of time, and there are many clusters need to be covered. In any case, so if your question has not been answered, please, you can send an email to the functional mailbox, and we'll try to answer the question. The question on eligible costs, in any case, I think it has been already on demo sites and rents, has already been answered by Luca when he was referring to the infrastructure costs. So that's all for this cluster. I thank all colleagues for their answering the questions. I think it was very clear, and I give the floor to my colleague Annette Jan, so she will guide you through next two clusters and the next topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. We'll continue seamlessly with the next cluster on facilitating investment and home renovation at local level. So here we are really looking for funding opportunities on mobilizing scales of investment into sustainable energy, an area of work which we have been quite, advancing really at innovation levels quite a bit through the last journey parts of Horizon 2020, and which certainly has a very important place in this call. So with me, I have two colleagues. I have my colleague Daniela Bachner with us, who is in charge of the technical assistance facility, so the project development assistant, in short, PDA. And we have our colleague Christophe Milin, who is our specialist on integrated home renovation services, and who will be available for the two topics on integrated home renovation services as such, and the third topic on strengthening trust of end users towards integrated home renovation services. Just a note for those who might miss a keyword around this. Some of you might have heard of our European city facility, which has been created and launched under the last part of Horizon. Here also there has been, we have publicized the word that there will be a continued, renewed funding opportunity for this facility facility. That facility is not strictly speaking part of the 18 funding topics of this call because it has a separate deadline, but just in case you were missing the word, here you can find it, but it will not be the topic of the session today. So I would suggest we move to the question view. So we're just giving it a second so our kind colleagues of the back office can stage this. Great. So now it's visible to all of you. We'll start with the first question, which is already highlighted. I will read it out for you. We're looking at the project development assistance topics. How do we prove planned investment at proposal stage? So that question, I invite Daniela. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Indeed, this is a very interesting question, which is specific to the PDA topic. We ask all the participants to attach obligatory annexes to the proposal. So when you go to the funding and tenders portal, in the slot for the project development assistance topic, there is in the section of conditions and documents, a table of investments. It's a Word document called Table of Investments, and this is an obligatory annex which has to be provided together with the PDA proposal. And there we ask all the applicants to provide us with information about the investments. So the type of investments, of course, also the address of the building or the asset, whatever it may be, so that it can be traced back at the end of the project duration where the investments took place. And also an important aspect is that you add an information of the type of documents which you will provide at the end of the project where you prove that the investments took place. This could either be contracts or published tender documents. And this all goes into these specific tables which need to be added to the proposal as an annex.
Thank you very much, Daniela, which was a very concise, comprehensive response to something which is actually fairly complex and special to this PDA topic. Indeed, here the applicants are to demonstrate that they will pursue the mission of launching a concrete investment pipeline on which at the end of the action, they will need to prove that the investment actually has been taking place or is about to be taking place. And this is why we speak of proof. Obviously, as Daniela explained at the proposal stage, this is a credible demonstration and delivering the data on your expected investment pipeline, which is sufficiently credible to the evaluation experts that we're actually talking about a tangible, concrete investment pipeline, which is being explored, engineered, and tailor-made in order to move into a concrete phase of its development during the project lifetime, that we would be gladly funding you in case you have an innovative and scalable idea of how to demonstrate a new pipeline. So it's probably better to speak about a demonstration of credible elements. The proof will be expected at the end, the legal proof will be expected at the end of the action. Then we'll look maybe at this. We could probably go and cover the next question with the next slides, because it's very much in the context. Daniela, you could just maybe add a final word on the final result of such a project.
Yes, and I'm happy to take that one. So in the PDA topic, we look specifically on launched investments at the end. So the first and foremost important result of these projects are launched investments in sustainable energy investments measures. This could be renovation activities in buildings or infrastructure, whatever you propose. Besides that, also the organizational innovation, such as set up development units, or on the financial side, the developed financial instruments are also project results, which we want to see at the end of the project. But the most important one are clearly the launched investments. And as you can see from the call description and the call topics, we have a leverage factor. which is we look for at least 15 million euros of investments for every €1 million of life support. And in case all the investments take place in the residential sector only, then the leverage factor is 1 to 10. So 10 million euros of investments for each €1 million of life support.
Thank you very much, Daniela. And I suggest that we move to the next question, which is the next liked. What are the differences between integrated home renovation services and project development assistance? Could also PDA target housing, which is, I think, a very timely question, because it allows us also to show distinct opportunities between those two topics, but also there's of course certain bridges in between them. Christoph.
Yes, thank you, Annette. Well, first to be said that it is perfectly possible to target private housing under PDA, and we do have a number of examples of such approach under Horizon 2020, and even before that under Intelligent Energy Europe. However, we have also several differences between the two different topics, which are PDA and integrated home renovation services. The latter targeting solely the private residential sector. So we have a strong focus under this topic on home renovation, while PDA is much broader, and you can address private housing, but you can also address social housing, public buildings, industry and services, transport, and even small infrastructure. There is another big difference between the two topics. In the under home renovation, we expect, and because the residential sector is complex, to develop integrated services that should be operational by the end of the action and tested during a pilot phase. But there is no minimum volume of investment required under home renovation. So what Daniela just explained before for PDA doesn't exist for home renovations. There is no minimum. This being said, it's a competition. So in your proposal, you should also demonstrate what you intend to reach in terms of impact, notably in terms of investment trigger during the pilot phase and within the first 5 years of operation of the services. But there is no minimum requirements, and there's no leverage factor in home renovations. So that would be the two main differences, I would say.
Thank you very much, Christoph. I would suggest that we stay a moment on the home renovation services, as we have two further interesting questions. Probably we could combine them in the answer, Christoph. I'll just read them out loud for the benefit of our participants. So under the topic integrated home renovation services, could you clarify what is expected under the heading develop as a self-sustained business model? And we could combine this with the question under the topic integrated services, should financing be included?
So maybe I start with the second one on whether the financing services should be included. In all proposal, in all project, we want to see how the proponents consider and facilitate the financing of investment. But facilitating the financing of investment does not necessarily mean that the services should include directly a standalone financial offer. You could also consider in the set of services to be developed that you facilitate access to existing support schemes, or you could develop partnerships with people external from the consortium, and in particular partnerships with financial institutions such as banks. So you should consider the financing. You do not necessarily have to bring a financial offer on your own. And regarding the self-sustained business model, what we want to see is some sort of mindset, as a prospect of economic viability, at least in the medium or long term, not necessarily in the short term, but we want to see how the activity include the development of a clear and sound business model with the prospect of at some point reaching long-term viability. Because also the topic aims at paving the way for future initiatives and notably triggering future initiative, maybe from private actor. We want to see how this economic viability is considered. Maybe one point also to clarify that not having subsidies to cover the running cost of the service provider does not mean no subsidy for investment. So if there are subsidies for investment in the territory for the benefit of homeowners, and these could still be considered, obviously, and facilitating the access to this investment subsidy can be quite useful and welcome.
Thank you very much, Christoph. I'm looking at the time, so I think we have the time for 1 or 2 more questions, which is great because it allows us also to address the new topic on European community of integrated home renovation services. Here we have a question: is the EU community of integrated home renovation services practitioners expected to include partners from all European member states? That would be also for Christoph. Thank you.
So the short answer will be no. There is no requirement for the consortium to cover all member states. This being said, it's a competition. So with regard to the evaluation criteria, it could be beneficial for the consortium to cover a variety of context and locally relevant approaches. So to have a broad consortium is certainly something to consider. But the selection of partners should be based on the relevance of their approaches and also the possible contribution for to the collective intelligence that we want to develop, and not just to extend the geographical coverage. So there should be a clear explanation on why these partners are part of the consortium and what do they bring in terms of collaboration and international discussion.
Thank you very much, Christoph. This actually answers also in good part the next question, which was lined up in terms of the likes, whether applicants need to prove their experience in providing such services. I think you've well explained already, and I don't know whether there's maybe one sentence to add here, because then I would like to take one last PDA question before we move over to the next cluster. Anything to add, Christoph, on the experience proof?
It's basically a yes, they should prove their experience. We want a community of skilled practitioners, so we want to see how they are skilled practitioners.
Thank you. Thank you. Then one last question under this cluster, going back to our project development assistance work, what kind of disruptive solutions are expected in the project? Daniela.
Thank you. So disruptive solutions here means we look for innovative approaches in a way on how these projects develop their project pipelines for the investments. So these disruptive solutions are expected to extend the market boundaries, the barriers which exist on the market, and also change the way currently the processes work. So this could either be on the side of the financial engineering in a way how the financial schemes are applied and developed. So we look for scalable financial schemes that have a focus on leveraging private finance that could, for example, be energy performance contracting or blended funds, or also some kinds of on bill or on tax financing, just to name a few which has been demonstrated in the past. Or the other side of these innovative solutions could be the organization of the investment program. So for example, developing a project development unit in the public administrations, or having applications of bundling and pooling of assets to really increase the project pipelines. So in that areas are these disruptive solutions expected, and you can also see a couple of examples in that presentation we had in July.
Thank you very much, Daniela. I think this covers very well that angle of the important angle of the project development assistance, a very important facility which is working basically hand in hand with the EIB ELINA facility, and then concentrating on its own niche of investment pipelines to mobilize, and will continue to do so really side by side with the ELINA facility. Now, in this cluster, we haven't managed to address all of the questions. I think I need to relate you back to our functional mailbox, and we would now invite you to follow us into the next cluster. Cluster 4, if you want, on the agenda, where we will be, and thank you, of course, Daniela and Christoph for all the answers. And now we will be looking at the cluster on building a national, regional and local policy framework supporting the clean energy transition. Here we are having 3 funding opportunities, 3 funding topics which were published in this call and which we will be focusing on. The first one is the work with the cities and regions, so the technical support to the clean energy transition plans and strategies in municipalities and regions. We have a second topic which basically zooms out, if you wish, because here we're looking at the effective implementation of the key legislation, and here we actually need to say the key European legislation in the field of sustainable energy. And then we have a topic which is dedicating its focus on the member state support on the governance regulation. Here we're looking to establish climate and energy dialogues to deliver the energy governance. So we have 3 colleagues with us, Ulrike Nuscheler, and Michele Sansoni and Céline Tougeron, who will be available for your questions. And I would suggest that we move over to the Slido view to see the first questions. So let's start on the work with the cities and regions. The first question for Set Local, which is the acronym for this work on the technical support for the plans and strategies in municipalities and regions. Is it compulsory to include local and regional authorities, I suppose, directly in the consortium? Michele.
Good morning. So the short answer, it is not compulsory. There is no obligation in such sense, nor that is an eligibility criterion. However, we discussed this issue also for other topics. The topic text makes it clear that public authorities, local and regional authorities, need to be strongly engaged in the proposed actions. So they can be part of the consortium, or they can be involved and engaged in other ways. On another point, it is not compulsory to restrict the consortium only to local and regional authorities, because a wide spectrum of relevant organizations and stakeholders can also be included.
Thank you very much, Michele, for this very precise and succinct response. I think it comes also back to what the colleagues had been stating earlier, that basically you as applicants, you are in the best place to judge the effect. There is a very strong feature, obviously, of that part, and needs to find a good place in your proposal, but also foremost in your work that you're proposing. Let's take the next question, which moves us over. Let's first go by the likes, and then we see whether we need to maybe make sure that the balance is getting right. Here we would move over to the topic on multi-level governance. Here you're asking, do I have to cover the elements listed under the 3 points of the scope, or can also only one bullet point be addressed? So this would be for Céline. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. And indeed, in that specific call, we do expect the proposal to cover each of the 3 points. We consider that they cannot be independent from each other. So we expect the actions proposed to develop this permanent dialogue, build on the best practice, and deliver the governance and processes model and to integrate with other ongoing initiatives.
Thank you very much, Celine. That was very clear and certainly very helpful for anyone looking at this topic. We'll move to the next question. That brings us actually to the third topic under this cluster on the policy framework. How should applicants deal with the fact that key European legislation indeed is very much currently under the revision and not in place by the end of the call deadline? Here, it probably needs also maybe also a good opportunity to point to the scopes of this topic. And I would invite Ulrike.
Thanks, Annette. Yeah, indeed, if you mention the scopes there for this year, I mean, it's broader in total for the topic, but for this year, we've opened scopes A and B, meaning A is the Energy Efficiency Directive and B is the Renewable Energy Directive. And this is actually quite a tricky situation, or quite a tricky question, because indeed, both pieces of legislation that are in scope are currently under the review. What is good is that there's already a proposal, so you would know as an applicant where the journey goes. But to come back to practical terms, we would expect you to formulate or propose actions that would support the requirements that are in place, but forward-looking and including some flexibility to also address actions that would evolve from the evolving policy framework, because it will be then normally in place while the action is going on. So it would also show whether you can anticipate, and the proposals are on the table, where the journey goes, and include some forward-looking flexibility so that you would be able to address not only the things that are in place, but I mean, remember that the spirit is the same of the current one and the future ones, and then anticipate how you could also support upcoming provisions.
Thank you very much, Ulrike. Indeed, a very specific moment of time, and in this way, I'm glad that the question was asked, because it's of course very relevant. Ulrike, while we are at this topic, probably we could just cover also the second part of the question. There is a question on policy. Should only be those areas and aspects be addressed that are listed in a specific scopes for each of the directives? I think that is a natural continuation of your response. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you've had a look at the topic description, you see that we have highlighted several aspects that seem to be the natural core provisions, like for example in the Energy Efficiency Directive, Article 7, that requires a lot of implementation support. But of course, if you feel and see and understand that there are provisions upcoming or that got a bigger relevance since this topic has been published and drafted, feel free to also address it, just explain it very well. But I mean, already the specific scopes, because they're general scope and the specific scopes are quite comprehensive already. But still, if you feel something is missing and you have a very relevant action, feel free to propose it.
Thank you, Uli. Then let's move on with the questions. The next one will take us back to the first topic that we were looking at the work with the cities and regions. Michele, topic on clean energy transition plans. Do we need to address all of the impacts mentioned in the call text, which is also a nice way of introducing the notion of impacts in our work? Thank you.
Yes, thanks. So basically, there is no need to address all, but all the impacts listed in the topic text. But there is need, of course, and proposals need to demonstrate to address the impacts that are relevant, considering the scope, the objectives, and the expected outputs of what they are proposing. So basically, there is no additional points in ticking all the boxes of the impacts if the impacts are not relevant for what the proposers are proposing. So
Thank you, Michele. So basically you're suggesting, and I think very rightly so, a very considerate and meaningful handling of impact indicators. You will see that the impact indicators are actually, of course, tailored to the topics which are being proposed. So in that sense, I mean, most of them are certainly relevant for the work that you might be heading out to deliver. Having said this, the importance of a specific impact indicator is extremely linked to exactly what you're trying to do. And I think Michele made a very good point of that you would elaborate on those and be credible on those rather than trying to basically explain all of them, even if they're not fully relevant to the type of work or the line of work and the agenda that you're trying to advance. Let's take the next question, which is on the multi-level governance. Very important question in that topic. How do I demonstrate the permanence of the dialogue and the structured synergies that I aim to set up, which is a key to this topic? Thank you, Celine.
It's actually very central in this topic. And actually, the call text specifically reads that the created structures will have to demonstrate that they are fully sustainable after the end of the European funding. So you have, of course, different way to address this aspect. You understand from the call text that a lot of emphasis is drawn on the collaborations between the different governmental layers and stakeholders. So you have to show how this will last in view of the updates and of the reporting and monitoring of your NCPs. You can do that through basically having stable collaborations among the actors to be able to continue after the action. But that it will be central and will be assessed carefully during the evaluation.
Thank you very much, Celine. Again, looking at the time, I think we can allow for one question pool if you wish. There is, again, the situation that we have a participant who's identifying herself. So Marianne is asking questions around the topic on the transition strategies. Michele, there are several questions. We could probably take the first conceptual questions. What is the benefit of creating a strategy besides strategic documents which do exist in other frameworks like the SECAP or the SAMP? And I'm not sure whether we will have the time to solve the more practical and tangible concrete questions afterwards, but let's see how far we get. Thank you, Michele.
Okay, so very briefly, the topic aims to provide local and regional authorities with the capacity to deliver sustainable plans and strategies for the energy transition. So in this general language, SEAP and SECAPs and other similar plans can be considered clean energy transition strategies and plans, of course. So there is no obligation for a proposal to develop something on top of those plans if they are existing, of the local authorities need support to develop those kinds of plans. Of course, the KPIs defined in a strategy or plan which is about energy and climate can be relevant for the topic.
Thank you, Michele. We'll take one more question, but really the final question. At least 3 cities can form a consortium. Does each partner have the chance to develop their strategy?
I mean, so to be precise, the topic follows the general admissibility and eligibility condition for the partnership. The proposals need to be submitted by at least 3 applicants from 3 different eligible countries. We already discussed that there is no need to have cities or local authorities in the consortium, but the proposals need to demonstrate how cities and regional authorities will be involved. And then it is up to the proposal to decide where and to what extent offer support and building capacity of local and regional authorities. So if 3 cities are involved, provided they respect the requirements of the call, they can all develop their strategy, they can all be supported to develop their strategies, but this is not compulsory. I mean, a proposal can also justify why the support is offered only in one city or not in another one.
Thank you very much, Michele. Again, here, apologies, we will not be able to respond to all of your questions. We nearly made it in this session, but again, please feel invited to post your question in our functional mailbox. We will repeat in any case again the mailbox after in the closing, so you'll have no chance to miss this. And I suggest that we move over to the next cluster, and I'm happy to pass the floor to my colleague Maria. And again, great thanks to Michele and Celine for answering, and Uli for answering these questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Annette. Yes, so I'll guide you through the questions on the next cluster. So that is related to topics on building workforce skills, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, on topics on the capacity of the industry and the service sector to deliver the clean energy transition. So we have 3 topics here, as I said. One within the Build Up Skills initiative on rebooting the national platforms and roadmaps to ensure that we have the necessary skills in the building workforce to deliver the energy transition and the renovation wave. We also have another topic on energy audits and how companies can accelerate the implementation rate of the recommendations on energy efficiency measures that companies had when they implement an energy audit. And a new topic, exploring the collaboration across industries, the small and large industries in the same value chain to increase energy efficiency investments and renewable generation. So I have 2 colleagues with me to reply to these questions. Amandine de Costa-Lacour, she will answer the questions on the Build Up Skills topics. She's responsible for the Build Up Skills initiative in the unit. And then another colleague, Oronzo D'Aloisio, working in the industry team and responsible for the energy audits topics, will also answer the questions on the energy audits and the value chain topics. So I have now here on the slides the slide of questions that you have posted. So thanks a lot for this. And we'll start with the first question, the one with the biggest number of likes. So it's for you, Amandine. The question is on the Build Up Skills topic. In which language should, very practical question, in which language should we plan our deliverables?
Yes, thank you, Maria. This question is relevant because, as you will see from the call text, this topic has a clear national focus. Yet there is also a need to ensure EU-wide dissemination, because the challenges related to the upskilling of the building workforce, they are also valid at European level. So in this respect, we would expect that the key deliverables from these projects submitted under this topic would be delivered both in the national language of the targeted country and also in English. This means also that there needs to be budget foreseen for this, the full translation of these deliverables, and this can be handled either in-house by the partners, or it can be also outsourced. And so by key deliverables, we mean notably the updated status quo analysis and the updated national roadmaps, obviously. And it's also advisable that applicants specify in their proposal the language in which they plan to deliver each and every deliverable for the sake of clarity.
Okay, so very, very clear, Amandine. We'll go then to the next question on the list. So on the value chain topic, is the participation of entities such as ESCOs, municipalities, third parties obliged under Article 7 of the EED and the Efficiency Directive required in the proposal? So I give the floor to you, Oronzo.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, the question is very relevant. Indeed, in addition to companies, the question of whether key stakeholders such as ESCOs, municipalities or local councils, third parties obliged under Article 8 are required. As such, there is no strict requirement that these organizations are included in the proposal in the consortium. However, experience shows that having such actors on board, especially when there is a clear logic between the methodology behind the methodology of the proposal, really helps make the difference in terms of writing a very good proposal. So the topic is very open as to which key stakeholders to involve, and their participation can be actually secured via not just bringing them into consortium, but also via letters of support. So it really depends on the structure of the proposal. However, the reply is that it is open up to applicants.
Thanks, thanks. So also it's a question that is coming across a bit all the topics. So it's not an eligibility criteria, but read the topic test. It's very clear on which organization should be encouraged to have an active role, and up to you to define how you want to ensure this active role and convince the experts who will evaluate the proposal. Okay, so we'll go to another questions, and this time on the skills topic. So for you, Amandine, for the topic on the skills platform roadmaps, what is the level of expectation in terms of endorsement by stakeholders?
Yes, indeed, endorsement activities are particularly important under this topic. So by that, we mean not only, very naturally endorsement by national authorities, particularly the ones in charge of vocational education and training, and also energy efficiency in buildings, but not only. But it should not be confined to national authorities. It should also, applicants should also search for endorsement from other institutions, notably social partners, training bodies, academia, industry. So naturally, the list will vary from one country to another, depending on the national reality. But what is also important is that already in the application, that there is an indication, at least a preliminary list of bodies that support the application, and they should preferably confirm their interest through letters of support. Then, of course, as the project develops, new endorsers may, of course, join and manifest their support.
Okay. Thanks, Amandine. Very clear, but indeed, relevant organizations will need to endorse the initiative to make it happen and to make it useful, so that it has the impact that we are expecting in terms of changing the building workforce skills to adapt to the new challenges of the renovation wave, looking at digital skills, for example, or industrialized renovation skills, etc. Okay. We go to the next question with 6 likes this time. It's on the value chain topic. So for you, Alonso, is there a minimum number of companies and value chains that need to be involved in the business models or business cases that will have to be developed by the topic, by the projects?
Thank you, Maria. Yes, so there is no minimum number of companies actually to be involved, nor value chains to include in the business models. This, I can expand, goes also for the topic on audits. So there is no minimum number of companies to be involved. However, it is really left to applicants to propose a minimum number of companies based on, of course, on the work to be conducted. So it means that sort of reality check also needs to be taken into account, and also the relevance of companies and the value chains that are developed within the project. That is what I think evaluators will be looking for in excellent proposals. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks. Very clear. Nothing to add. Then we have a question on the building skills topic for Amandine. On the call text mentions a duration of 18 months. Another practical question. Is this indicative, or are exceptions possible?
Yes, indeed. This 18 months duration is mentioned in the topic for, I think, a very good reason. It is that this topic is meant to be a first step and to lay the ground for the next steps of the Build Up Skills initiative. So in a way, we need to make sure we have results early enough in the process, so we can then steer the rest of the initiative's implementation. Also, you have to keep in mind that this topic really aims at updating work that has been done 10 years ago, basically the status quo analysis and the roadmaps. And of course, in the meantime, the construction sector has evolved very dramatically. And that also means that the skill set required from building professionals has really changed a lot. So what we really expect is that the projects that will be selected will capture these new developments and these new changes, and will propose actions on these. This is also why, if you look at the call text, there is a requirement that the status quo analysis comes already within the first 9 months of the project. You also have to keep in mind that in this topic, there is really a requirement to reach out to many stakeholders. It doesn't mean they have to be in the consortium, but I mean, you will have to reach out definitely to many stakeholders. And so we also believe this is best achieved through a very intensive process to keep the momentum, if you like. This being said, for successful applicants, at the time of the grant preparation, there could be a slight increase of the project duration accepted by the agency, but this will need to be really justified. And in any case, we are only talking about a limited increase.
Okay, thanks, Amandine. Very clear with a full explanation on why this expected short projects. So there is no time to waste for this topic. And again, I recommend to all of you to read the topic test, because all the requirements are very well spelled out. And of course, this topic, it's, as Amandine saying, building on the Build Up Skills initiative, which is a wider initiative. So there's a bulk of information on this initiative that will need to be assessed before the project starts. So it won't be part of the project itself. So there's a lot of work, pre-work that will need to be done to have a good proposal there. And then we have a final topic. So we didn't have a lot of questions. Sorry, we didn't have a lot of questions on these topics. So for you, Alonso, on energy audits, can the project fund the cost incurred by companies for the energy audit?
Yes, Maria, thank you. So prior to this, I can then maybe, if we have time, expand on the previous question on the companies that we would be targeting, and to complete by saying that the topic is very much open. Both topics are very much open as to which companies can be involved. So what we mean by companies, any entity engaged in an economic activity. It could be private, it could be public, provided that there is an economic activity. And in terms of whether the project can fund the cost incurred by companies for the energy audit, I think we can read this also in a way, and also what about the implemented measures that companies would undertake. So the reply is, it is possible to charge on the project, so to speak, the cost related to the energy audit. However, this will need to comply with subcontracting rules, because financial assistance to third parties is not eligible as a cost. So what we would actually recommend instead is that proposers seek funding opportunities for this at national level. In fact, there are a number of funding schemes existing at regional, national level, which actually can fund fully or partially the cost of energy audits undertaken by companies. So we would encourage you to do that and think ahead of the proposals, actually, which instruments you would want companies to tap into. And the same goes for the work and the cost related to the implementing of the energy efficiency measures by companies. So in this case, unlike the cost for the energy audit, it cannot be funded via our project. So again, it would be advisable for proposers to actually seek these funding opportunities at national or regional level, so as to increase also the synergy with our funding program, and also increase actually the chance that companies will will be willing to implement the energy audit and then implementing the measures.
Thanks for also very clear again a message that is come across today several times. So we are supporting brains and not bricks. So indeed, the financing the implementation measures that companies will take after an energy audit is not eligible as such, and with the topic we're aiming at accelerating the implementation rate and indeed to address those market barriers that are not preventing companies to implement measures after an energy audit. So providing, for example, a full services to companies to help them to go this step forward. So that's it from my side. So we address all the questions, so that's good. And I pass the floor to Annette for the last cluster on topics on financing. Thanks, Annette. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria. So I would like to take you with us for this last cluster of this morning of this live set session. We might have a bit of time for more general questions afterwards, if you like. But let's first look at attracting private finance for sustainable energy. Basically bears very much as the header suggests. Our work on facilitating private investment into sustainable energy with the topic mainstreaming sustainable energy finance and integrating energy performance into EU sustainable finance criteria and standards. And we have a second topic, which is our innovative financing schemes for sustainable energy investments. I've got two colleagues with me. This is Adrien Boulier and Michele Sansoni, who will kindly support by being available for your questions. We have the view to change over to Slido. And we can see here the suite of questions that you've been suggesting. Thank you very much for those questions. So let's start right away. First question on financing. Does it matter which type of finance organizations are involved or targeted? Do finance organizations need to be directly part of the consortium? And that question would be answered, I suppose, by Adrien.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So indeed, this is a very good question. The focus for the mainstream topic, but also to some extent the innovative financing topic, is very much on reaching out to finance organizations. That, I would say, it really depends on what the proposal is addressing. Some proposals need absolutely to tackle the banking sector, some the investors, the pension funds, the insurers, rating agencies. I think it really depends on what you want to do. What you need to show is that the finance sector is not just a buzzword, but you identify clearly segments of the finance sector that you want to address, and you explain how you will involve them. As I think was explained in previous topics, you don't necessarily need them to be part of the consortium. We've had very good proposals with the banks or with the pension funds directly involved, but in many cases it's not the case. What you need to demonstrate is how you will involve them throughout the proposal and the project.
Thank you very much, Adrien. Very clear. I think it's also good to explain that also this topic runs with, so to say, two scopes. So there are two distinct pathways for this topic, and probably also that the answer of Adrien is perfectly relevant for each of them, and that you're actually also really embedding your future work into these two scopes. That probably is a good way over to bridge to the next question, because it picks up on one of the scopes of the mainstreaming topic. How does the topic on mainstreaming sustainable energy finance relate to the EU taxonomy on sustainable activities? Adrien.
So yeah, as Annette just said, indeed we have two scopes, which you will know if you have read the topic. The second scope is very much focused on the sustainable finance strategy, and so the EU taxonomy is playing a key role here. I would say that the relation to the EU taxonomy is very much, the EU taxonomy is very broad, and energy efficiency is a key component within the sustainable, the taxonomy. But how you will anchor, how you would relate concrete energy efficiency project to the EU taxonomy is not absolutely clear, because in many cases, energy efficiency is blended within corporate lending, for example, or investment in stock market. And so it's not so easy to identify the energy efficiency component of an asset, whereas it might be easier for things that are related to renewable energy, for example, electric cars. So part of the topic is about clarifying and making transparent the fact that some of the energy efficiency components of assets comply with the sustainable finance taxonomy.
Thank you very much, Adrien. Very future-oriented work under this topic. If we look at the topic on innovative financing schemes, let's take the next question. In the proposal, is it necessary to detail the innovative financing scheme which will be addressed? Michele.
Yes, it is necessary if proposers want to submit a robust proposal. And in particular, we would like to see details on the innovative financing schemes proposed, and the proposal should include a clear, concrete, and mature concept on the financial solutions to be developed, and also the sectors and the investment types targeted. And of course, they also have to demonstrate that the solution respond to the market needs and can have a substantial and concrete impacts. And the solution should also be economic and financial viable, and respond and tackle in the right way the market barriers.
Thank you, Michele. I think we could follow on directly with the next question, which is the next likes. On innovative financing, is it okay to have a project focused on well-known financing schemes if they're still innovative in the countries of the proposal?
It is perfectly okay, because innovation in the topic text is not meant as innovation per se, but the actions need to be innovative vis-a-vis the target regions and the target countries, and of course the sectors and the segments selected as a scope of the innovative financing scheme proposed.
Thank you, Michele. Nothing to add. Very clear, very precise. I think that will be a great help for anyone who's looking at such a scaling. Let's take one more question. We are coming to the end of the time for this session, but let's take one, unless we can, depending on the shortness. I'll take the last one first. Very highly relevant question. What indicators can demonstrate that banks or asset owners modified actually their practices regarding investment into energy efficiency and renewable energy? Adrien?
Yeah, I think this is a very relevant question, actually. What we want is for this topic on mainstreaming. I mean, some of the aspects of the topic would be basically modifying the practices of banks, asset owners, insurers, you name them. How you demonstrate that is basically concrete uptake, and that's not always easy. But really at the proposal stage, it's, I think, committing to a number of those entities, taking up the results of the project. That is what you should propose, and what you should also quantify well enough. And then it's also important to quantify, to explain who these people are. It's very different to talk about a small boutique that delivers, that manages a few million euros or 100 million euros, and a massive investor. So you also need to quantify that.
Thank you, Adrien. As we have the benefit of having one more question, and it's somewhat related because it's part of the impacts being demonstrated for mainstreaming projects. We could actually also take this one. How should I demonstrate the investments resulting from my project in a topic on mainstreaming sustainable energy finance? Adrien again, thank you.
Yeah, I think the answer here is, I mean, like in most of the topics, you should prepare a robust calculation explaining your assumption and saying, well, with this uptake, you know, if so many banks are delivering the new loans that we propose, then here's how much investment would result from, would be financed through the new products. What matters is also, if you're looking at investors, is being able to quantify what is the portfolio of investor that would be impacted, what type of investments. So I think we're not looking, like in project development assistance, at concrete investments really directly deriving from the project, because those projects might have been financed otherwise and you're not originating the investments, but it's really what is the potential based on realistic assumptions for uptake of the results of my project. And in most of the cases, the investments don't necessarily happen within the duration of the life of the project, but rather a few years later. So here we're looking again at having a robust set of assumptions.
Thank you very much, Adrien. Very concise and clear. I think to round up, Michele, if you were to transpose the question to your area of work on innovative financing schemes, could we maybe complement one sentence on how far the applicants should demonstrate the operations of the financing scheme at the end of the action? How far are they expected to go in the impact indicators in this topic?
Yes, so the innovative financing schemes proposed need to be operational and ready by the end of the action. And regarding the investment triggered and the other indicators like the energy savings, so the renewable energy production or the CO2 reduction, of course, we do accept and we do understand that some of them might might materialize after the end of the project. But the very important thing is that the innovative financing schemes is ready and operational by the end of the action.
Thank you very much. I think this is very helpful to be precise about this, because that's of course one of the critical results that we are expecting from this work. And with this, I would suggest that we close this part of the session. Thank you very much, Michele. Thank you very much, Adrien, for being available for the questions. Thanks for the questions to the audience. And now we have still a bit of time before closing the overall session on set, and which gives us the opportunity to be available for some generic questions, some horizontal questions. And our colleague Zoe Villiers is gladly available for this, our expert on the operational schemes of our program, and I would be happy to pass the floor to you. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you very much, Annette. Welcome to all from my side as well. So indeed, I'll try to answer some of the questions with the minutes we have left. So I see indeed there are quite a few questions posted here. So Annette and Maria, feel free, welcome to add anything you may add. I'm pretty sure we unfortunately won't be able to answer all of them, but we'll do our best. And as Annette said, if in case we don't manage to answer your question, feel free to contact us through the functional mailbox. Okay, so I see a first question highlighted here. What is the predecessor program of the CET actions? It could be useful to look at as a reference. Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think, Annette, at the very beginning, you explained that we are building on the Horizon 2020 program, more specifically on the market uptake activities, the coordination and support actions under the work programs on secure, clean and efficient energy. So this is fully the case indeed. So if you want to have references about the work that has been done, I strongly recommend you to look at the Cordis website. You can find the link actually there in the call document related to the live CET call of 2021. So under the introduction section of the call document, which is actually section 0, you find the link there to the Cordis website, where you can find information on the funded project under all the calls we've had over the past 7 years. And you will also find very interesting results packs where you can find relevant information on these projects. And it's very, very good to look at that, because indeed you will have to explain the state of the art and so in your proposal to make sure that you're well aware of what has already been done. So that would be a very good thing to do. I'll take another question. Yes, I see there's a question in a way linked to that. How is Live CET different or similar to previous energy calls under Horizon 2020? So Live CET is building on H2020 energy efficiency. As we said, it's, as in the past, based on topics. So as you know, we have 18 topics that are open under this call for funding. It's very important that you carefully go through these, that you check the objectives we're looking for, the impacts and the scope that are mentioned there. These topics, they vary from one year to another, so they evolve according to the policy developments. So it's important that you go through this call after call. So this, I would say, is still similar as in the past. We have a few differences though, you know, we're a new program. So typically some main differences are the funding rate. We now have a 95% funding rate. We have a 7% overhead rate on all the direct eligible costs. The template to submit your proposal is different. So please don't use a template of the past, but really use the template that's linked to the topic you're applying for. For those who are regular applicants, you will see that compared to the CSA actions we had in the past, you have another page limit. It's 70 pages. And this doesn't mean we're looking for more information. We really want you to stick to that limit for sure. But what's very important is that you are not allowed to remove the instructions of the application forms. So please stick to that, leave the instructions in the application form. Sorry, another financial differences, that's once you are successful and your project has started, is that we will have a pre-financing rate of 30%, followed at interim stage of another pre-financing, so another payment of 50%. And then if everything goes fine, we have a balance of a maximum of 20% at the very end of the action. I think these are the main differences. But of course, there are a few more. But I mean, Annette and Maria, if you want to add anything, just feel free. Otherwise, I move on to the next question. Are international consortia a requirement for Live CET? A very good question as well. So this, I would say, is similar as what we've been doing in the past. So yes, we are looking for mainly international consortia. It's actually an obligation for most of the topics, for 15 out of the 18 topics actually, to have consortia with at least 3 eligible legal entities coming from 3 different eligible countries. But of course, we're looking at the impact of your action. And clearly, the broader your consortium is, generally the wider your impact may be. Of course, we look at in detail at the content of the proposal. I here want to say that on average, our proposals, the successful proposals that get funding, they have consortia of between 8 and 10 eligible countries, and also these are larger consortia. We do have exceptions for 3 topics where it is possible to submit a proposal coming from 1 legal entity of 1 eligible country only. But there again, this is not a limitation. You are fully free to come up with bigger consortia. An important element here when we're talking about bigger consortia, please don't make artificial consortia covering north, east, south and west of Europe just for the sake of having a large consortium. please come up with a relevant partnership fully in line with what you intend to reach with what you've described in your proposal. Okay, another question, very popular I see here. Will there be direct management by CINEA project advisors as before in H2020 CSA, so coordination and support actions, or will there be external consultants involved? So here, the first part is correct. So this will be a continuation as things were done in the past. So you will, if successful, you will be in touch with CINEA project advisors and financial officers to follow your project and to assess it. I don't know, that's a brief answer. I hope it answers the question. So I just wanted to remind you as well that yesterday we've had a general session during which quite a few general questions were addressed, including quite a few financial questions. Our financial officers were present during that session, and that session has been recorded. So we'll do our best here to see how we can help you if there are still very popular financial questions. As we said, our functional mailbox is always available for that. I see another question here is addressing the issue of the 95% funding. So could one partner receive 100% of the EU funding if the overall consortium still receives 95% of the funding? So you will see in the application form, you will be able to put a maximum percentage of funding of 95% for each of the partners. However, if partners want through a consortium agreement between themselves organize things in a different way, this is really up to them to look into that. I will leave the question on the linked third parties to the functional mailbox. If we see we have many questions of these, we will post new frequently asked questions on the tool. So I hereby would like to mention that for all the topics we have, when you go to the funding and tender portal, you have dedicated frequently asked questions which have already been asked regularly by you. We may populate them again based on the questions that were asked yesterday and today. Unfortunately, we have a hiccup today and the questions have disappeared, but the IT team is looking into promptly putting them back online. So please make sure you go back to the tool and to check all the questions. A question here on letters of support, whether or not to include them. So you will see when you submit your proposal online in the system, for those of you who applied in the past with us, we use the same system. So indeed you have a part A where you put your administrative data of the consortium, a part B where you put your technical annex, which is a Word template that you convert into a PDF. You have a part C where you will have to fill in key performance indicators, and then you have other documents. You have a detailed budget form, which is an Excel file to complete, and you have also a participant information file to fill in. And last, this is where I'm coming at, you have an optional annex where you can post letters of support. So all the ones I mentioned first are obligatory, and the one on letters of support is an optional one. This is up to you to post them or not, but I think my colleagues already mentioned that typically support from some stakeholders is not necessarily obliged to be included through a consortium, but can be useful in another way. And typically this could be a way for you to show you have support of relevant stakeholders. So to include these letters of support, so they are being looked at. If that's a doubt you may have had, yes, all the letters of support that are uploaded will be looked at. I hope this answers the question. Again, I'm looking at my colleagues Annette and Maria. Please don't hesitate to compliment if you want to add anything. I think I may just take another question or so because I see time is really ticking. The question on top, are equipment and infrastructure costs eligible under this specific call, so under live CT. So large infrastructure costs are really not what we're looking for and are not eligible. This, I mean, if you look at the topic descriptions, you will see that these are not the actions we intend to fund with this call. Equipment generally are hardly ever funded through our calls. I mean, it could be possible that equipment is needed. Then only, of course, you have to depreciate the equipment when you present it. So though, in case for your proposal equipment costs are necessary, make sure you present it then appropriately with depreciation, and these costs could be eligible. But as I said, it all depends on the proposal, and I must say for us, it's been rather an exception so far, but this is fully possible. Before I close, I think this is a very relevant one on the eligibility of partners, and here more specifically on the UK. You will see in the call document, I refer to that, on the eligibility section, you will see which countries are eligible. And what's important here is that you look at the hyperlink as well that's mentioned. So who is eligible overall for the call? Of course, the EU member states, but then also other countries which are listed in that document with the hyperlink. I would say this is a document that evolves, but so currently, so what you see there is the listed countries that are in an association agreement with the LIFE program. And so far, the countries that are eligible through this association agreement with the LIFE program, so far it's Iceland. And this country then is also eligible for funding as an applicant. What's very important is that the coordinator needs to come from an eligible country. There is also another way to participate, and there are other consortium roles like associated partners, third parties giving in-kind contributions, and subcontractors. Associated partners and third parties giving in-kind contributions can come from other countries, but of course they will have to bear their own costs. That's very important. So they will not be eligible for funding. So if a UK entity wants to participate as an associated partner or third party giving in-kind contribution, this is possible provided there is an appropriate justification for that. Then there is still the role of a subcontractor where entities can come from other countries as well. But again, subcontracting is very limited for a proposal. And if you come up with a subcontractor from another country, you'll have to explain why it's very important that you have this subcontractor on board. I see it's time. I think I will close here. I see the first question on the top for call 2022. Things will be known in the coming months, but we can't tell you right now whether the topics will be open again for next year. There is no view on this for the time being. I think I leave it here. I thank you very much, and Maria, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe, for this answering all these general questions. Some of the questions that have not been answered were answered in the general questions session that we had yesterday. So you can watch those recordings, and you will find the answers to your questions there. If not, if you think that you still have a question to address us, please send us an email to the functional mailbox. You have it on the screen, and we will try to reply. So that's all from our side. So we are just ending to this 2 hours question and answer session on the topics that are all open for the call 2021 on the live set. I hope you have found it useful. And as already said several times, please, if you are thinking about sending a proposal, preparing a proposal, look at the topic test. All the material is in the participant portal. There is a clear description on what is expected in each of the topics, and also There are recordings and presentations on the info day that we did online in July. So there is a lot of material that we'll have to look at before preparing a proposal. And of course, the frequently asked questions that will be published together with the topic that are published together with the topic descriptions. So far today not available because of the IT bug, but they will be available very soon. So with this, I just want to thank all of you for sending your questions and liking the questions and being with us today for these 2 hours. I think we have around 300 people watching the session today, if I'm not mistaken. Back office sent me this message some time ago, but numbers might have changed. And I would also like to thank, of course, the back office for all the work that they have done in helping us to make the Slido setting easy and everything run very smoothly. And to all colleagues who have answered the questions, I think they have provided a lot of information with very comprehensive answers to the questions that you ask us. And with that, I would like to close the session. So thank you all again, and wish you all the best for your proposals. And looking forward to get a proposal. Thank you.